Tuesday with your host, Jimmy Lewis.
And me, just Jimmy Lewis. That's it. One person show. We're trying to simplify it here. It's the way it started. And that's the way I'm going to keep it unless it's a special show, which tonight, every Tech Talk Taco Tuesday is a special show. My name is Jimmy Lewis. I'm with Dirt Bike Test. We are a motorcycle and motorcycle product testing company. We're kind of an editorial source, kind of like the magazines used to be back in the day, except there's really only a few magazines left, and there's very few that are doing it like, I'd like to say like we used to. The ones that are still telling it like it is. So anyways, the purpose of Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, which is a horrible name for a show where what I do is I answer your motorcycle and motorcycle product related questions. We do this in a format that's easy for you to interact with us. You can do it live. It's the best way to do it. Come into our chat live, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, and type in a message, and we see it. It pops up on the screen. 9 out of 10 questions I can answer without referring to a reference manual. And thank you, Brenda, for confirming that you can hear and see me. And for that, I apologize. So, yeah, pretty empty studio tonight. Actually, this whole building, this whole facility, my office in here, which is strikingly larger in square footage than most motorcycle publication offices. And if I included the shop space that we have, we're like times 10. It's crazy that it's gotten that out because everybody just works from home. And I used to do a lot of my best work at home because I could think and concentrate and wasn't distracted by people kind of cruising around the office. But yeah, that it's just come down to all you need is an iPhone. Basically, you need an iPhone, and then you can be a journalist, a motorcycle journalist. Well, it's not called a journalist anymore. It's called an influencer. It's kind of like journalists in general are not really journalists anymore. They just look at their Twitter feed. I guess they call it X feed now. And then they report that as news. And so all you have to do is pump up some fake news and somebody catches it and they report it and then it becomes news. So welcome to the new world. That's the way it is, and it's like that in motorcycles too. Tonight we have an awesome show coming to you. I've got Cole Townsend from Fast Company. Fast Company, one of the sponsors of the show. I'll go over the sponsors. You can't see this because it's really small on my screen, but I'm going to show you Instagrammers. Look at this brake clevis. This thing is trick. Super Sano. It's got a nice... It's stuff you can't see, but it's funny. Some of the stuff you can't see makes the biggest difference. This is a brake clevis. The pin is anodized, super nice colors. It's titanium. This is a factory part. And if you wanted something like this, I'll hold it up here to the big screen. I'll actually zoom in a little closer so you can see it right there. This is a Fast Company brake clevis. They're about $45. And if you want to make your bike super factory, that and their brake pedal return spring, especially for the KTMs with the junky stock spring that comes with it. Those are really Sano parts. Can you see them? Probably not. But if somebody was really looking at your bike close and they saw that stuff on there, they would know you knew what you were doing. But anyways, Cole Townsend from Fast Company's coming on. He's going to come and talk about handlebars. Why should we talk about handlebars? Well, it's one of the two places that you hang on to control your bike. Actually, you shouldn't even be hanging on to it. You should be using your handlebar controls, your handlebar and all the controls mounted to it to control your motorcycle and not hanging on to it. Because if you're doing it right, you anticipate what is going on, and then the controls are right there where you need them. That's why it's important to have your handlebar. And I say handlebar, handlebars. It's really a single bar. The handlebar is where it needs to be, so your controls are where they need to be so you can ride properly. By the way, my name is Jimmy Lewis. I run an off-road riding school called Jimmy Lewis Off-Road Training. We just released our fall schedule, so if you want to become a better rider, go to www.jimmylewisoffroad.com. I dare you. I'm actually going to make a guarantee. I'm going to do a guarantee for the schools because people don't believe that it really works, the stuff that we teach. It's finally because the influencers and the people that post on YouTube and the pundits that are commentating on different motorcycle relating activities are finally sort of catching on to what we've been teaching for the past 20 years. It's amazing. We caught on to what we were teaching about 15 years ago and then ran with it. We're not making this crap up. Anyways, www.jimmylewisoffroad.com. Our dates are not up on the website because you have to subscribe to the newsletter because our classes sell out and then you can't get in. So we give our newsletter subscribers at least the first chance. Then we put them up on the website. Our other sponsors, thank God for other sponsors. Yamaha has been sponsoring us for a better part of a year now. I love Yamaha because I like YZ125s, I like WR450s, and I really like Tenere 700s. I have a vlog on the Tenere 700. Actually, I know, you know what? I can actually put that up here. I wonder. Oh, I gotta switch it here to this. Hold on. This is where I'm doing some buttons here. You can, and so if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, you can't see this, but of course you're watching it. My Tenere 700 got loaded, and now you can see the Tenere on the vlog that we have there. Go to dirtbiketest.com or our YouTube channel to see any of the stuff that we do. Those are our places. It's simple, dirtbiketest.com. Just search it. It'll come up, and you can probably, if you have a question, motorcycle question, if you search it on dirtbiketest.com, you're probably going to get an answer that's fairly accurate. So a Facebook user says, any opinion on the 18-inch front wheels fad that is trending? It's not a trending fad. It's something that started back in the 1960s. So don't get excited about that. If it started retrending again, this is just like everything else. It has cycles and phases. I've ridden bikes like that. I know guys that swore by it. They were generally guys that rode bikes back in the 1960s and early 70s. They were riding Triumph desert sleds and on big, heavy bikes that didn't handle very well. For sure this worked. If this 18-inch front wheel thing really worked, you would start seeing manufacturers, at least one of them, would at least go out on a limb and try it. Or you would see someone race with it and start winning. And that's what really, when someone races with it and starts winning, then you know it works because there's some advantage to it. But I understand that the 18-inch front wheel is kind of a thing for, let's say, old, slow trail riders that want their front wheel to float in the sand. And so I'm completely down with you. I understand what you're trying to get at. It's really, it has some advantages, but the disadvantages for most riders completely outweigh any advantages. If you're completely out of balance and you need to have your front end grab extra traction, then that might work. But it also doesn't roll over the bumps as well. So it tends to get caught, and it's super heavy, and it makes the bike handle really slow. And so if I'm advertising for my school, which I do, come and see me. I can fix your need for that front wheel. But there's also a lot other things. Like I said, it just for most people, it just doesn't work. If you get a chance to try it because you're going to love it or hate it. And if you love it, there's a problem with the way you are riding. So, yeah, you're might get a Fat Cat. Maybe you get a Honda Fat Cat or a Yamaha. Yamaha makes a TW200. I think they still make it. That is going on the same principle, and that gives you 270% of the same feeling, which means a lot more. So if you like that feeling, then, and that's an easier way to see whether you would like that, then maybe go there. But boy, are there some disadvantages to it that really outweigh the positives. Although I couldn't talk my really old friends because they were really old and they were really set in their ways, and that's what they wanted to do, out of it. Even after they rode some of my bikes, and they said, because they were mostly talking about how it made their suspension better, and their suspension on their bike was just plain crap to begin with. Mostly because they never set their sag. As I set the sag on one of the guy's bikes, and all of a sudden he didn't like his 18-inch front wheel anymore. He had to put his sag back way out of spec. But he also wanted a lower seat height too. So lots of different things. So that's what I think about that. That's the kind of question you can ask on this show. I give you my opinion, and I can see why it works for certain things work for certain people. And even though I have really awesome sponsors, again, like Taco Moto, Scott Sports, Climb, DDC Sprockets, Trail Tech, and Fast Company, as well as Bulletproof Designs and Double Take Mirrors, those sponsors will allow me to talk about other people's stuff. I can say bad things about their products, although it's hard to do because the reason I have them as sponsors is because I really do enjoy it and like it. But if you ask me a question, let's say you're going to ask me a question about a DDC sprocket. These are these awesome lightweight stainless steel chain rings. It's our first sponsor on the show. Long time ago, 202 episodes ago. He said he'd do this. I can probably, if you want the lightest sprocket out there, this isn't it because it's made out of stainless steel and it's designed to last forever. If you want a lighter sprocket, there's probably something better if that's your criteria. Yes, you're going to be replacing more. I can say that, and he's not going to call up and say, I quit advertising. So that's how this show works. Okay, I'm hanging up on you Instagrammers, all 7 of you right now, 7,000. Come and watch us on the other live feeds because I've got to call in, and I've got to do a call in on this. I got to plug my computer into my thing. See you. X the live show. End now. Okay. Wow, I got an award or something like that. A badge? Is that how this stuff works? I'm gonna continue. I gotta share it, but I also have to 202. Okay. There. Done. Share. Okay. It's when you're just one person, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, I got to get on the horn here and make sure I get my call. Boy, did I get a lot of text messages. Okay. We got our caller coming in. Hopefully it's going to be Cole Townsend. Hopefully this works. And we'll see. I'm plugging things in and doing it the way we do it back in the 2022s or 21s or whenever I started this damn show. Which line does this come in on? Okay, it comes in on that one. Hopefully we'll be able to hear him, and we'll see how this goes. Hey, if there's any strange echo or anything going on the grams and the Instagrams and stuff like that, let me know. So, oh no, you cannot. Wow, I can't get. Actually, hey Cole, how's it going?
Great. How about you, Jimmy?
You're live on Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. You know, my other boss for one of my other jobs just called. I should have picked up on her and said, "Hey, you want to be on Tech Talk?"
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
Cole Townsend, Fast Company. My favorite handlebars.
Yeah, been your favorite handlebar since like 2002 or 3.
When did you introduce those bars?
2002. What the day after what was supposed to be the MX Does Nations at Comp Park, and then they had that race at Glen Helen because Comp Park fell through.
Okay.
So we did a huge release, and Pirelli Tires actually piggybacked it on with us for a release of their tire. It was a good event. All the media was there, and
back when there was magazines.
Yeah, great magazines, great editors, people that had a philosophy about how to test motorcycles and product and review them and relay that experience to the readers.
So I have a question. But in the beginning, would you agree with me that the bar was kind of, let's say, not well received, or maybe I don't want to say received, but understood?
Yeah, it's always been misunderstood. It's still misunderstood until you ride with it and experience it for yourself. And it's got to be set up for you, your preferences, your body build, which it's not that hard. I mean, in general, if we just put our bar off the shelf on your bike that's the proper bend, you're going to have a better day riding. But so many people have preconceived notions about it, so it's always a tough road to hoe. But yeah, the cool thing is, man, we have customers that just live and die by it, and it's the first thing they put on their bike. And sometimes those guys try different things, but they always come back to it.
Right. So in when I remember when I very first rode them, the I mean I don't, even if it's something completely weird, I will try it. And then I kind of form, I don't really want to listen to all the PR speak, and this goes for new bikes or all different kinds of stuff. I just want to ride it and kind of see what it does. And I don't think I had, let's see, 2002, I think my wrists were just bad. That was just when well, actually, I didn't realize they were bad for another 2 or 3 years. I mean, I was still going to doctors to figure this stuff out, but I was still kind of a knucklehead, and I was still just able to hammer through stuff and beat myself up. But and the frames at that point had not gotten super stiff, right? Correct?
Correct, for sure. Yeah, the chassis were much more forgiving, and today, like with one of our other products, our spoke torque wrench, all the factory teams, all the OEMs, everybody calls to and buys spoke torque wrenches from us, and they want the torque set up a bunch of different torques, and mostly because they're trying to get the chassis more compliant and get more comfort into it. But that usually has some kind of negative effect, which kind of leads back to the bar, where we get that comfort, we get the small bump compliance, we absorb all that abuse, but you're not having to soften the chassis, and you can set the suspension where you prefer. And yeah, the products kind of go hand in hand with each other.
So you're
What
okay.
often
Okay, so you're telling me, you don't have to tell me this, but you're telling me that you have factory mechanics that want their spoke torque wrenches, which by the way is another amazing tool that unfortunately, Cole, I swear that I misplace mine, and I have like 3 or 4 different toolboxes, and I get so pissed off when I have to tighten my spokes and I can't find that wrench because I'm going to put it here, but you're telling me that they torque their spokes differently to get a different chassis feel on their factory bikes.
Yep, to get a little more comfort out of it.
Okay,
Not and a
that's my
factory mechanic is not. They're not allowed to do that. Per se, they're not allowed to call us and change torques. I mean, the OEMs are dictating the torques from engineering at some point. So they're testing, and I don't know where they end up, but I know they are. There's a lot of different torques now versus before. Pretty much before we send all our wrenches out. 90% of our wrenches out at 48 inch-pounds, which is great from an 85 on up for the majority of riders because it's not abusive to the components. It's not going to loosen up on you either. All the factory teams used to run, especially to get through Supercross whoops and survive, a main event, they're running 60, 70. Yamaha Troy ran 85 inch-pounds. Like, just the wheel was so tight, and all it's so much strain on the components, and it's obviously transmitting a lot of abuse back to the rider. But nowadays, go ahead.
That can be I mean, like people don't understand, like the way that the wheel works is when it's getting hit on one side, it's pressing on the other side. So having a really tight wheel tries to tear the spokes out of the kind of the opposite side, and then it depends on the hub. And I'm just kind of, the reason I'm bringing this up because people a lot of times, especially new riders, and this we kind of talk to a lot of different riders in different levels, different experience levels, people new to the sport, they don't understand like how much engineering goes into some of the specs that are put into your manual or some of the tuning that's available to you, with aftermarket. And hence you're just making a spoke wrench here, and we'll get to the handlebars later because the handlebars are easy, but the level that some people would go to tune a part of the motorcycle to work better it's not just, I'm going to buy an ECU and put a pipe on it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, man, there obviously we make a spoke torque wrench, and we find a lot of value in that, and you get a lot longer life out of your wheel. And for the highest level guys, they can find discern the different torques for comfort. But in general, in our race program, if I'm working on my bikes, my kids' bikes, we're doing it with a torque wrench, because if not, you're not building that chassis as intended by the engineers, and maybe you find a torque that works better for you, but you wouldn't know if you're not torquing. So, we experiment a lot with torque in general, and there's definitely gains to be made and personal preferences to it.
Yeah. I mean, literally people especially that don't really know, laugh when I talk about this stuff, laugh when I say, hey, if you, a certain bike chassis, we talk about torquing the swing arm pivot or the head stays or the engine mount bolts or switching engine mounts and all this stuff. And they're like, does a regular person feel it? I don't know if they feel it, but the bike can just work better. And let's get off of this and get on to the handlebars, because what I really wanted to have you call in here. And by the way, if those don't know, Cole's young son, Grayson, was racing in that super mini race this weekend at Chicagoland at the. We don't talk about racing here unless it's talking about my racing credentials, Cole. But I just wanted to bring that up. That it's awesome that your son was doing that, hucking big ass jumps on super minis.
Oh yeah, he loves it. We love it as a family. He works super hard. It's just an awesome way to grow up. My older boy trains with him and works super hard. They work as a team, and man, it's such a cool way for them to grow up, and they love it so much, and it's provided so much for our family. And it's hard to understand if you haven't lived it at that level.
Yeah. Tell everybody where they can find him on. Probably Instagram is the best place to find the kids now.
Correct. Grayson Townsend. Yeah, just at Grayson Townsend. He's on there. And at Gunnar Townsend. Yeah.
Grayson and Gunnar Townsend. They've been on the show. They were probably like 5 inches shorter. They were running around on the back.
Probably like feet shorter.
Could be. I don't know. Yeah, he's getting ready to move off a super mini to get to a big bike pretty soon, huh?
Yep. In a couple weeks. So yeah, it goes so fast, but it's so cool.
So okay, on to the handlebars, because you are a handlebar specialist, if there ever was one. And I'll tell the story. We kind of talked about that intro, and I said it was a little bit maybe misunderstood, and it's hard to receive because in the beginning, especially, the bar was heavy, quite a bit heavier than a standard bar, and at that time all the handlebars were really advertising being lighter. It was a kind of a new thing, so it's different. And motorcycle, man, I remember when disc brakes were new and different, nobody liked them. I remember when, there was single shocks and nobody liked them. Different things. Power valves will never work. 4-strokes will never work. So this industry is very reluctant to try and change. And you guys came out with the handlebar that had some flex in it. And I remember my very first thing was I got on the bike, and the fact that the handlebars moved was a little bit. I could feel it because I feel little things. We talked about the torque of different things. They moved, and that was different, but I didn't know whether it was good or bad. It was definitely different that day. So and I took them, and I said, hey, can I take a pair of these? I want to ride with them more. And the one thing I noticed that day, and I think I said this to you, I said, I rode them on a bike that I wasn't really happy with the forks. I couldn't get a good fork setting. And I said, well, if they do anything, they made bad forks good. They made my forks work good, because I couldn't get that initial bump compliance I wanted. And I was kind of like everything else. And like I said, I at that point wouldn't admit that I had bad wrists, or that riding all these dirt bikes with stiff forks was wrecking my wrists, although I wrecked them myself. So there's all these different things that were kind of going on. And I just stuck them on. I probably stuck it on my XR 400, because that seems like where all the, I don't want to call it crap, but when you're at a magazine and you're getting all kinds of stuff, I would just put it on one of my personal bikes and put it on there, because I know that I wanted to ride something that was sort of mine, and I knew exactly how it worked, and then I could dissect it. And that was probably the worst bike I ever put it on, because XR already had a mushy front end. But most people don't go riding for 17 hours a day. And afterwards, my wrists would hurt, but my wrists stopped hurting. This probably prolonged my dilemmas with my doctors, because I'm like, can't figure out why my wrists don't hurt sometimes when they should. It's maybe they're getting better.
Yes, I have a similar story for the fact of I needed my navicular pin and some of the bones reshaped, like when we were developing the bar, and I was like, okay, I'll ride the bar for a few weeks, and then I got to get my my wrist fixed, and but I was like, I can't miss experiencing the product while we're developing it and just rely on everybody else. So yeah, I started riding with the bar, and then it put off my wrist surgery for a couple of years from having to really get it tuned up and fixed up, and it was crazy. I mean, my wrist was really deteriorated. I mean, the bones were all ground down. Definitely the doctor was not stoked on my decision, but that's how it is. And so yeah, similar story from that aspect. From the bars, you originally rode, everything has evolved so much in the bar, and we're always working.
Rebound damping.
Yeah, rebound elastomers
who
are. I mean,
who
the
who
amount
helped
of
with that stupid idea?
your everything comes back to you, Jimmy.
I know. I just remember saying that was one of my complaints when I came back. I said I feel my forks topping out when they never did before.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
something so simple but so bitchin'.
yeah. So the bar has evolved so much. We're always working to improve it. And even though it looks similar to the original release, it's just, I mean, it's such a different product. And we've redesigned it numerous times. The frustration is, basically we're just redesigning some of it to change aesthetics, and but there's always some kind of it misses the mark somehow, where usually in structural integrity versus our bar is so resilient, man. It just holds up to so many big hits, and people ride them for so many years and take them from bike to bike to bike. So the bar you're riding now looks similar to that one that you originally rode, but it's so different. I mean, we box the pivot points to minimize any flex in the material. We only want the bar to move through the pivot point. We spend tremendous effort to be the stiffest product we can through the steering plane, so that keeps it having a traditional feel and input and characteristic. You're not steering through the abuse reduction mechanism.
Right.
When you push on that bar, the bar is moving in the direction you need it to
Yeah,
go.
and so let me just slow down and break this down. So the steering plane is if you're turning the bars side to side, which and as a riding instructor, you don't really want to do that, because if you're balancing the bike the way you're supposed to, you're initiating most of the steering through the foot pegs, and the bars will kind of naturally follow the way the bike's supposed to go in, quote, a perfect world, but it's never perfect, so you're always putting in there. So as much as you think about pushing through the steering plane, I always think that the steering plane, the reason you need really high level feel in that is because if the bike it doesn't go naturally where it wants to go, it talks back to you and tells you that really stiff
Right.
steering plane, which is, like I said, it's the bars turning, not the bump absorption. And you don't want your absorption component, which is the bars moving up and down, to cross into the steering, because then you're mixing the two different feels. And I've tried some different absorbing mechanisms, whether it's different bushings or different clamps that do this kind of stuff, that mimic those two things. And if you're just a bulldog, you won't notice it. But if you are really into feeling, if you want just a chassis and a platform that is super tight, the flex bar is, in my opinion, definitely the way to go.
For sure, yeah, and it's not by accident. I mean, that's our philosophy. I'm not interested in doing something that negates input or changes the characteristic and feel in your hand, like going from a wood to an aluminum bat, or changes the control, or you have to steer through something. Like, if it's not applicable on a supercross bike, I'm not really interested in building it. And that's just our preference. That's our philosophy, and so that dictates we have to be extremely stiff through the steer path to be able to be forgiving in the load path, and so that philosophy, that each one complements the other. So it allows you to have a traditional feeling bar, but absorbing the abuse.
Yeah.
Plus, the bar is super tunable. So through the different elastomers, we can dial it in for whatever your preferences are. And we spend a lot of time with each customer to be sure, if the customer wants to. I mean, we're always there for them to spend time with them over the phone or through email to dial their bar in. Most guys just take the bar, put it on their bike, and it works so well just off the shelf that they never really think about it. But there's a lot of performance to be had if you spend a little time, tuning it.
I can fully agree with that, and I think you can speak this too, that as you learn the bar, you start going to softer and softer elastomers. I mean, a lot of times, and I used to, like I said, I talked about that movement, which was my kind of something that bothered me just a little bit in the beginning. But you're like, hey, just run stiffer elastomers. You'll still get the same benefit. And if you have the chance, this is a regular person, if you ever have somebody that has flex bars and then there's a regular bike next to it, all you have to do is take your fist, just hold up your hand and take your fist and just drop it down on the handlebars. So I'm just kind of simulating a hammer drop. Just you don't have to just let your weight of your hand drop down onto the handlebar and do it with a Fast Company flex handlebar and a regular bar or anybody else's damping system. It doesn't matter. Just do it like that. And you will feel the difference in what it is. And then if you want to, try hitting it on the steer plane. Like hit the bar straight on with the steer plane, and you'll notice that the other bar, if it's dampened especially, or if it's a flexier kind of handlebar or setup, you'll notice that it has less feel that way. So there's these little, that's just a run-of-the-mill street test that you can do. And like I said, I've always been a big believer. But so the question that I want you to answer, but we're going to answer, I'm going to save your question on the right handlebar, but we have a couple different questions that people have asked about the bar. Let's see. I got to go through these things. Ron Wielder says, do they make bars for mountain bikes as well? Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, and luckily Mark Daniels replied to that in the chat. So sometimes in the chat answers the questions too. But hey, if you think I rave about the motorcycle handlebar, holy crap, is the mountain bike bar way better. And I'm not saying, it's just like that segment needs handlebars. Like they make, because like my wrists hate my mountain bike. Now I'm fine.
Right.
Incredible. Yeah. And I was really stoked when you got into that because I knew the need.
Yeah, the mountain bike, you have so much load on your hands at all times. So it really, no matter how good a shape you're in, your hands, your wrists, everything gets fatigued or aggravated, more quickly than usually you can pedal. So like by putting our bars on, it just makes it a non-issue, and you can focus on pedaling, focus on your ride, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, so not to go too deep into the mountain bike thing, but do the mountain bike guys? I know they're weight weenies. They complain about weight with everything, but do they're going to complain about weight no matter what, even if it's an ounce. But and the bars really aren't that heavy. I mean, think about it. It's one hamburger. Do they complain about the bars moving? Because I know they push and pull on the handlebars.
No, so just going back to the weight real quick. I mean, when we were developing the bar, weight was such an issue, but the bikes have developed so much, and the mountain bike now.
I ride an e-bike, Cole. I have to admit, I ride a giant Trance. I love it. Love everything about it. I love every extra pound it has on it, especially when I push the button. When I start bonking, and I push the buttons, and I get elite athlete legs, and I pass my buddies that I'm not even allowed to ride with because I'm so damn slow that I can now go riding with them. And yeah, thanks, Dave Donatoni.
Right, for sure, beast.
Yeah, follow him on Strava. He's 1 million years old.
Yeah, that guy can hammer for sure. But on the weight, it's the market's changed so much that the weight is not such a consideration, and we're not that different. We're around 425 grams, so it just is what it is, and you get so much bang for your buck. There's a huge return for that. Like you're having a better day on the bike. You're not thinking about your hands and your wrists anymore. So we really seldom get any issue with the weight anymore because the bikes in general are just so much heavier than they were at one time. I mean, if you're a weight weenie, you're a weight weenie, but those guys are pretty few and far between now because
since everybody's riding e-bikes now, they don't really care either. And then since they're riding e-bikes, we don't have to pull up on the handlebars so much. So my other question doesn't matter, exactly. or do you have people that'll complain about that? I mean, I know the elastomers I find the elastomers, especially on the rebound side, what we're talking about, so much more critical I played around. I couldn't believe how much I played around with my rebound elastomer to get that right on my mountain bike handlebar. I was going back and forth, and then switching to a different compression elastomer and back and forth, and now I'm all happy with it. But here's where we
Yeah,
talk about the tuning that's available in it.
yeah, for sure. So the bar, just like the moto bar, it's very stiff through the steer path, but forgiving the load path, and then obviously it's tunable. And most guys prefer a stiffer, equal or stiffer rebound elastomer, and there's some tunability in that. So, but you're kind of a special case, Jimmy, because you're so technical and have such a feel versus most guys put it on, see such a big difference. They just ride with it, and enjoy the product.
Well,
But as with the
you may
motorcycle
not know
bar,
this, but I'm actually a product tester and evaluator, Cole. I used to be a
yeah,
professional motorcycle racer. I don't really like to talk about my racing in the past, unless we are talking about my racing. But I always, it just like with this podcast, I want to make it better. I want to make everything better. And
yeah,
and
yeah,
even though you guys make a great product, and like I said, you just bolt it on and go for most people, it's like I wonder if there's that 0.1% more that I can tune into it. And I've found that I may make it worse by trying what you send it with standard. And just like I used to just go stiffer and stiffer on my moto bar elastomers because the movement bothered me. You're like, don't do that. You're like, stop it. And then I started going back down, and now I'm running some of the softest settings that you guys sell because you know what? You were right.
yeah.
You get used to it, and that's the good thing is you can tune and evolve. And I started finding that I could run my fork stiffer on my motorcycle. I could run my fork stiffer, which made the bike work better, and I didn't upset the comfort of my ride in general. And so that's
Yeah,
the whole thing.
both for the moto and the mountain bike bar, the small bump compliance is just so good. So it's picking up the stuff your suspension isn't or before it is, and so it just smooths it out. It takes all that high frequency abuse away, and but it does so, in a traditional manner where you're not noticing that per se. So, yeah, properly set up bar, you're not really noticing for the most part until you're like, oh shit, this is gonna hurt, or until you go back to a traditional bar and you're like, what's going on here? Like it's so rigid and just transmitting so much abuse that it's pretty shocking. Especially the longer you ride with the bar, like it's amazing because you just kind of recalibrate your senses.
What would be really interesting to try just out of stupidity would be solid elastomers.
Yeah, we've made those.
Yeah, just to, I mean, like that's in testing. I never thought of this because I haven't really I would never done that level of testing on your stuff, but that would be a way to kind of feel some different things. So we got a couple questions here. Brenda says, my downhill bike won't care about the extra weight. She can't wait to get some. So when Brenda calls, just let her know that let them know you're a Tech Talk Taco Tuesday listener. And I told Cole we were going to send these brake pivot sales skyrocketing. So everybody that's looking at like the super most trick part about your bike, get one of these little suckers, and then you can just say, I'm doing it because I want to have a factory bike. Right, Cole?
For sure. There's a lot of factory teams that have ran our brake clevises. Yeah. I mean, they've ran almost all our products over the years. So,
it's some of the stuff that I see like that you guys were making, these little parts that you were making in the early days, Fast Company, when they were kind of getting started. It was like somebody got a really good look at a factory Honda and said, that's cool. And we're talking about, like, now I'm specifically talking about the rim lock, the little rim lock spacer. That was something that somebody overthought the simplest part ever. And how does a regular person get it? Well, Fast Company. They had these. And I just remember because I used to hang out with some factory Honda mechanic guys, and some of those parts would fall off the truck kind of a thing. And we're talking back in the 80s. Yep. Sorry to, hurt your brain, but yeah, a long time ago. And so I have on, God, what bike is it on? I just saw it the other day. I have actually factory Honda, like a full HRC one-way valve on the gas tank vent tube. Like something that Yamaha's come with standard, but those were on the factory Hondas back in the day for some strange reason, but little cool parts. So yeah, you definitely have a long history of making cool stuff, and the handlebars kind of that's your own thing, man. It took it to a new level.
Yeah, the rim lock spacers, we actually my dad had a mill and a lathe in our garage, and Mike Gossler was a good family friend, and so he just hit my dad up like, hey, why don't we make some of these for me? And so my dad machined them up, and so yeah, we had those on Factory Honda before we were like even a company. I mean, I kind of started this bullshit in the college project because I was just trying to get through college and get
Wait,
out to go riding.
you didn't
And
want a real job.
yeah, I didn't want a real job, and yeah, that's a long time ago for sure. But so I said that we had a business building these products, and the teacher said I was full of shit, and I don't think school's for you, but you should probably look into doing this. So
That's
that's how we really started, was doing like trick custom parts for here and there for just good friends of ours that maybe didn't have access to that equipment at the time. So yeah, we had Rimlock spacers. My dad gave them to Craig Monty for Sebastian Tortelli when he won LA Coliseum on a KX250 when he just came over here from MXGPs, and just walking around the pits. And yeah, it was just kind of basically a family project at the time, and then I bullshitted that school project and it ran from there.
Hey, again, it's the passion. It's the passion that drives the cool stuff in this industry.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. You got to love it. You got to love like every part of it, because it's all consuming. And, with what we do with racing with as a family, with my boys, like there's really nothing about, especially racing at a high level, there's nothing easy about any part of it. And there's nothing that is like a really good common sense decision financially, time wise, anything. I mean, it's ridiculous. But on the same token, it's the best. It's just the raddest way to live life. And like, we're so passionate about motorcycles and parts and all these things, and normal people just really don't understand. Like, you can't explain it to somebody who's not moto. Like, it's you can never rationalize it. You can never sell it like that. Like,
Right.
they'll never understand it.
Yeah. Okay. So now here's the question that a lot of people were wanting to know is like, so how does someone it will get a hold of you specifically, or to Fast Company specifically, if they're looking for the right bar? But just, can you drop some knowledge on how, whether it's just regular Joe on an adventure bike or someone that wants to, find a better position on their off-road or motocross bike, how do you determine bar position? Because you must get this question 70 times a day.
Yeah, so we work on two fronts. One, the abuse reduction, which is obviously pretty speaks for itself, but two, the ergonomics. Like, we love ergonomics and putting the rider in a better position on the bike. So the easiest way to do it is just go to our website. I'm bonking on the button right now, but it's under our blogs or philosophy or something along those lines that will it gives you just a lot of information on bar bins as well as ergonomics. And we build the ergos around multiple factors. Being the biggest really is your goal as a rider, because some guys want to just ride and be comfortable, and some guys want to be super fit and really accelerate their technique and fundamentals and get better, so they need a little more aggressive position. So we love to have a conversation with the rider, either through email or on the phone, and discuss their goals, obviously their body type, the bike they're riding, their current bar preferences. Oftentimes we'll find out, do you have any extra bars laying around in your garage? Like, oh, I have a CR High and I have a Henry Reed. Like, okay, well, this is where those differentiate from your stock bar. Now you have 3 bars. We gave you some dimensional data to this so you can relate to how it feels. Go ride those bars. Tell us what you feel, what your preferences are, and now we can have a better conversation. So and that's, those are for guys more along your lines that get super geeked out on it. In general, if you just call us or email us, we ask you a few questions and we're going to get you on a bar.
Yeah, you usually come off of, most of the time you're coming off your stock bar. I have this as my stock bar that this is my bike I'm on, and I think I want this or that. Would that be, that's a general common question. That's a real easy one for you to answer.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because in all these years, I don't even know whether I was talking about a Renthal bar bend or a Pro Taper bar bend, or what the Honda came with or what the Yamaha came with. Like, I don't know what those were. I definitely knew when I got on a bike that the bars I didn't like, and I'd usually ask the person like, "What bars are these?" And they'll say, "Oh, it's the Carmichael this, or it's the Henry that," and these names and numbers. And I kind of remember the Carmichael bars were always really low, you know,
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. But now it's like, well, all I really know now is, okay, I like a Fast Company 12-degree bar.
Right.
And then the height, the height of the bar kind of depends on the bike it is going on, and what I'm, if I'm putting a steering damper under it, a steering damper over it, these different things. But yeah, so I believe that just going to the website and just like reading some of the blogs will tell you. But when we start talking about this position, you would say an aggressive position is kind of a lower, more forward bar in general.
Correct.
And
Hmm.
and then more comfort would typically kind of be, well, especially on adventure bikes, taller, because adventure
Yeah.
bikes tend to, well, actually that's a double-edged sword, because on adventure bikes, the reason the bars are so low and so swept back is because the standard adventure rider position in the real world is sitting down and in a very relaxed
Yep.
position. But every adventure rider thinks that they need to stand up on the motorcycle all the time, and then they stand
Yeah.
straight up because they're not moving, and they reach down to the
Right.
handlebars and they can't reach them. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I promise you that, well, if they do reach them, they're bending over or they go into a squat. They don't actually stand up. And so I see this all the time because I'm an adventure bike guy, I guess. And I'm the full anti-bar riser guy. I don't like bar risers
Yeah.
that much
I agree.
because it puts you in it actually, when you're standing up, it puts you in a leaning back position, or it's straight up position, which the wind blows you and you lean back, and then you're falling off the motorcycle. You're not in a good position. So there's a lot of stuff to this, and I know we've had really good discussions about, because I have all these different adventure bikes, and you'll call and we'll talk about, like, why would you want it here or there and the other, and it's interesting to kind of watch. I always say that the normal adventure bike guy stands up on his bikes with his bike on a center stand or on a stand, stands up and reaches down, and they can't reach the motorcycle. It's like, dude, you do not ride like
Right.
that.
Yeah. 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 We try to, point the rider in the right direction of where he's primarily riding the bike, and that's typically sitting down. But you know, most the adventure bikes these days are coming with around an 80 to 90 millimeter sweep, which for a lot of guys that's really good, especially if they're primarily riding on the road. But if they have a dirt background, like, they typically prefer a little straighter bar. But it's not going to be as straight as the bar on your dirt bike.
Yeah, because
So
you
we
guys
have
have up to a 16-degree sweep.
we have a 19 with it. So a
Wow.
19 has 80 mil. Yeah. So that mimics, like,
A BMW.
yeah, the BMW sweep, but the BMW bar, how they orientated the rise and the sweep kind of combine at a certain point, so you end up with a lot more, like,
Right.
actual sweep.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
and
like if you go to a KTM, it's got 80 mil sweep, and I think the new Tenere is right around 80. I mean, the original, like the OG Super Tenere had, I think, 140 millimeters of sweep, like, ridiculous amount if you're trying to really ride that as an adventure bike. So
so
um
when you're talking about sweep, that's if the bar was 0-degree sweep or flat, it would be straight, sticking straight out parallel,
correct.
perpendicular with the fork angle. It would be kind of
Yep.
like 90 degrees to the forks. But you start talking about sweep, and the funny thing is, with some of those bars, when you start rolling a bar forward or backwards, it amplifies or decreases the sweep. And so I know,
For
like, the
sure.
BMW, because I did development with them and stuff. Like, you talk about them rolling the bar back and having the sweep, so they're also, the sweep is bad, but the rise, the angle of the rise,
Yeah.
when you rotate a bar like that up, the rise becomes ridiculous. It's no longer
Yeah.
flat. It starts dog earing. It's like you're hanging on to some bullhorn. So this is where and your rise is essentially adjustable through the elastomers to a certain extent.
Yeah. Through how much you preload the elastomer, and there's a lot of our blogs have a lot of info on how the sweep turns into the rise and vice versa, and kind of like where you roll your bars, naturally kind of tells us what bar bend you need. So, I see a guy riding through the pits, and I see where his bars are super far forward. He either needs a taller bar or a straighter bar or both. What's he trying to accomplish? I mean, that's something we always ask, is when the bars are really rolled one way or another. they're trying to accomplish something that the bar bin will never allow them to do.
That's good. Hey, we have a YouTube. You'll like this name, Mike KMET. KMET. Remember that? Are you old
That
enough to
sounds
remember
super.
this?
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar? Like there was
I don't know.
there was KMET in Los Angeles and KLOS. They were the two rock stations back in the day.
I remember
KMET.
KLOS.
Yeah. So, anyways, Mike KMET says I'm aware of them, but the explanation. He says I'm a customer now, so that's good. So, Mike, when you call up Cole, tell him who you are. Tell him you found out about him on the show, and
Yeah. What's your code, Jimmy?
I don't
Shoot, I shouldn't.
I don't. Yeah, I have to look it up too. Just like you don't know the price of some of your products.
Yeah.
You got to remember your discount codes. Hey, if you're looking for if you call up Fast Company and tell them you heard about it on Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, they might be willing to throw you out a discount code just because you're that kind of a listener. Especially if you share this information with like 5 or 6 friends, because the best recommendation is from another customer. In all honesty, it's pretty cool
For sure.
So,
Our word of mouth is definitely our strongest marketing.
Yeah, or my word.
Yeah, your word is great too. Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've told, there's, in my history, I've told a couple of people that no, don't get flex bars, because they just describe what they're wanting and I'm like, no, that's not for you. It's, they're just, usually it's the same person that tells me that they don't need a recluse clutch. Although the recluse clutch, that don't get a recluse clutch, that spans a lot larger thing. The only one that could be larger than that is, I don't want to run a trials tire when I'm riding off road, or a trials type tire when I'm riding off road. That's a hard sell. But it's real easy to there's real easy to say, nope, you do not run a trials tire because it'll be the worst thing ever for you. It's just different folks, different things. So hey Cole, I'm super stoked you came on the show, and it's good to have you on again. It was fun doing the show at the shop that one time.
Oh yeah, you got to come back.
I want to come back. I definitely want to come back up there. I want to go rip around with your kids. I want to do. I still me and Grayson still have a figure 8 contest to work out. Anytime you guys are passing through, it's not easy right now because the roads are washed out. But if you're ever passing through and need a place to stop for a day, I'll water my figure 8s. I'll water my flat track, and I will put it to that kid. Just ask Andrew Short. His kid, I mean, not nearly on the level of Grayson, but his kid. I taught him a thing or two about looking back, like what happens when you look back and you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And then put him in a world of hurt in the figure 8s and the flat track. So
my money's on you. I love to get under his skin.
I like to just feed it to the kids, and I challenge them every day to come out here and show the old man up. Because he might be listening. I used to be a really famous motorcycle racer. I might have won I've been on the podium at Dakar, which pretty hard to accomplish, evidently. People tell me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, he might be. He's interested in rally. He's planning a long-term motorcycling career.
He needs to start rally training right now. I can clamp. I will on his KX 112. I'll clamp an iPad on there, and he can go do a road book right out of the house. He just some one of these brakes. Don't the kids ever go on brakes? Do they have brakes?
Ugh, there's not really brakes.
Not really brakes. They just got them. They're just training machines.
Brakes are when you're injured.
Oh no! Nope. We don't want to do that. Yeah. Well, he can come and do he can do the online course, the online rally training course at that point, and start thinking about it. Because it's all brain exercises. It's not really. You've got to really give. You have to really give the brain exercises off the bike, because you don't learn 2 things at once. You learn 1 thing at once. So
yeah.
Anyways,
that would be good. We'll work that into the homeschool schedule.
Okay, homeschooling. Homeschooling.
We homeschool way before. Hey, you can go to government school and they can dictate what you're doing, or you can be real educated.
Because
we homeschool before moto.
I got it. That's I know your wife. I know she's beating the crap out of those kids and not doing their homework. I mean, in a good way.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Hey, Cole, awesome talking to you. Thanks for coming on. And it's Fastco, FASSTCO.com. Go there and check out their blogs. They'll give you all the information you need about the handlebars. So we will see you out in the trail.
For sure. Always fun, Jimmy.
Okay, cool. Take care.
Talk to you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, that was Cole Townsend. He's one of the co-founders of Fast Company. Of course, his partner is way into the mountain bike side. It's Chris Tidwell. I've known those guys for a long time. We used to do trail rides every year up in the mountains. Man, we got to do that again. But when you got kids that are racing mountain bikes and motorcycles and all that stuff, it's tough. So, hey, Todd, it's funny because our Cove video got a lot of props today from the guy from Everride, and obviously he hasn't watched Tech Talk Taco Tuesday that much because I talk about influencers and bag on them all the time. And I know Everride. I know that it's just a dude riding dirt bikes, and it'd be interesting to find out what he said. But I appreciate that. It's that whole society is very positive, and I do like that about that, but I also do like being the condescending, negative dude that tells you the way it really is, because that's when I grew up, so you can't blame it. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick commercial break. By the way, our sponsors I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to let you watch the break, and remember that support those that support.
The defending champion, the all-new Yamaha YZ450F.
What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. What is the Taco Touch? It's the best service in the industry. Virtually 24/7 tech support via email or text, and it's like having a dirt bike doctor on call every day of the year, helping you fix your bike or recommend parts or setups for you. If you've ever received an order from us, you'll know that the Taco Touch extends to our fulfillment, and our orders come with the coolest stickers that you've ever had, buying parts from anybody before, and a handful of root beer barrel candies. All of our Taco Moto Co. branded components come with a no questions asked lifetime warranty, and we'll even extend out the warranty of other manufacturers, OEM, and aftermarket parts where we can, sometimes for life. We test and tune endlessly and exhaustively and obsessively. We're trying to destroy everything that we can before you get your hands on it, to look for weaknesses and to improve it, or to make recommendations to the manufacturer. And if it's something that doesn't meet grade, then we don't offer it on the store. Everything that we carry is something that we have personally used, tested, and ridden, and raced, and knows meets the high Taco Touch demanding standard. Go out and get some adventure.
Okay, welcome back everybody to the show. Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. This is the show where we talk about motorcycle and motorcycle related products. Thank you to all of our sponsors. The reason sponsors on this show are sponsors on the show is because they like what we're doing. They trust that we're going to tell you the way it really is. And another guy that will tell you the way that it really is Tim Skelly from Inside Line Moto. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Hey, Jimmy, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I hope you're ready for this. Because the only reason I'm saying that is because I think on the last two shows, we had Logan was around. Remember that Logan kid? He was your favorite co-host. And what's really important that you need to realize about Logan was, every once in a while I like to take a little sip, like to let the vocal cords wind down a little bit. Bad for all of us. But anyways, I needed Logan to say something at that point. But he actually co-hosted last time, and no, he didn't co-host. He produced last time and did a really good job.
Well, good enough for you to post it up so I can actually listen to it after the fact?
Well, when he was doing a good job, I said, well, you're at least making one guy eat his words. So I didn't know. So the funny thing is, what people don't understand is, like, after the show, when we push C out in the trail and we're all done, like there's a certain amount of stuff that needs to get done to make that kind of go out into the interwebs and then end up as podcasts on SoundCloud and Apple, iTunes, and all this other stuff. So that's not getting done because one of my cohorts here lost motivation. This isn't the first time this has happened. We've had this happen multiple times now in the course of Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. It's probably because I don't think I want to say the word slaves. I mean, indentured servitude would be a little more accurate description of how we treat people around here. But I think you have to have a passion. And I just don't know how you can have a passion unless you're part of your slave thing is having access to unlimited dirt bikes and great places to ride and opportunities to go ride brand new motorcycles. And I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to do that. Do you?
I could fill in if you were closer by. I would, use some of my time off to do some volunteer work.
I probably should hook you up with Trevor, especially when we have the opportunity to go out and ride trail bikes. We've got a really good crew of older, I'll call them like vet MX / Grand Prix riders and stuff. But I want to get Trevor hooked up with more trail rider guys that have a pretty good wealth of experience, because it's really easy to just find a regular dude that just is into riding, but somebody that has, a technical knowledge like yourself, been doing it for a long time. That's, I mean, you don't just get to be a test rider. You have to have some sort of skill that we don't possess. And sometimes that might just be location, which is Southern California for a lot of what we do.
Yeah. Well, let me know. I always want to ride. There's no doubt about that.
So I got to do a little business here. Because this is part of the job here, but I'm gonna go ahead and hold up some things on the screen here. Who else rode a Husaberg today? I did. Not this one. This is an old picture of me on an old Husaberg. But if you didn't ride a Husaberg today, you're nothing. But I tell you what, in new Yamahas are coming out. We're gonna ride a YZ250, which this is a YZ250. Next week, Trevor's going to ride a YZ250F. I might try to make my way out there, but I'm holding up a picture of a 1994, I believe, YZ250. And if Trevor can get this rad on a YZ250, I'll shut up, because that's pretty good. I got it clicked. We'll call it clicked out a little bit. My gear is styling for the time. I'm wearing a 6 days an ISD helmet. If you don't know what that is, Tim, did I ever tell you how much I used to race back in the day?
I've heard some of the bench racing stories.
Yeah. So I was on the international 6 days enduro team for the United States. I was actually on the trophy team when I shouldn't have been. I should have been on the junior team because we would have won. But the year they put me back on the junior team, then we won. But I don't like to talk about my racing too much on this show. So the reason, let's do some other business. Trail Tech makes this really cool, Trail Tech, one of our awesome sponsors, makes this really cool tire pumper upper unit. And I'm going to turn it on right now. Live on this show, I'm holding up this little Trail Tech box, and it's set to pump up to 33 because I was pumping up a truck tire, by the way. And this thing will do a fully deflated truck tire, and it'll do a bunch of number of motorcycle tires. So I used to have to carry around a big pump when I used to go to the track or when I was going trail riding to make sure my My tires were pumped up. This thing is a pretty cool little unit. See, if I just push a couple buttons here, I have to look at it when I do this. I think I push this one here, and it'll change. Yeah, see, that's 2.2. That's for my quad. And then if I go to 22, is it? No, that's bar. I'm sorry, I'm changing the thing. If I push this button here, PSI, yeah. So there's 12.5. That's the one set up for my motorcycles. I just push that button, and then I go like this, and it does a little bit of that blowing stuff. So, anyways, a nice new product from Trail Tech. They don't just make the Voyager computer and awesome kickstands as well as fans. Fans are probably the most popular. That's thing. And then on the what are we testing segment? Oh, Pro Circuit. We're not testing these because we know the Scott goggles are awesome. But the special edition Pro Circuit Scott Prospect goggle. You need these. If you have any goggle problems, it's probably because you're not wearing Scott goggles. I wear them most of the time. I also wear Climb goggles as well because they're also good. But the Scotts are definitely my favorites. And that's all my products that we're using, testing, and all that stuff. Oh, I'm going to do a review of this thing. Have you ever seen this? Are you able to watch on the internets?
No, unfortunately not. I'm on the phone now with you and no visual.
Right. So I am holding up a tool from engduro.com, engduro.com. It's basically a billet aluminum machined tool rack, and it uses the standard kind of I don't know the measurement on it, the little fittings, like the little fittings you get for your drill motor, the pop-in drill motor.
Okay.
And it's
the quick chucks or whatever.
Quick chucks, yeah. And so it's a magnet in the center, and it's a machined aluminum thing. And all these things kind of slide in, and they stay stuck in. And then it essentially has the fittings for it, so it's like a mini T-handle tool. And I have been using this. Actually, I haven't been using it that much, and I'll tell you why. The reason I haven't been using it that much, and I want to talk to you about this, is I've been carrying less and less tools with me when I ride, as I see more and more posts from guys that want to carry fuel pumps and fuel filters and fuel injectors and an extra radiator and a spare chain and a new shock and fork springs with them when they just go on a trail ride because they're so worried about something going wrong. And I hate to say it, but I haven't been having that many problems, and I've been riding with less and less tools. In fact, I felt naked the last 2 times I rode because I kid you, I went riding with no tools whatsoever. And it's largely because I started thinking about this. I carry a phone, okay? Phone, and I generally, if I'm riding by myself, I have a tracker. Over the course of the years, I've had so few problems when I'm out riding that required tools. The amount of times I pull tools out when I'm just riding for fun is so few and far between. And I know everybody's like saying, oh, well, you got to be preventive and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm just going to risk it for a little while, carry my phone, rely on my really good support network when something goes wrong. And I might hate myself when I just need a flat-bladed screwdriver to fix my problem. But anyways, yeah, so this tool, that's why it hasn't been used that much. But in the times I've needed it, like the amount of stuff I can get done with this little sucker, flat, Phillips, Torx, the 10, the 8mm head, all the stuff I need is all in this one little thing that weighs nothing. It may be replacing my Motion Pro MP tool or the little Motion Pro other little socket thing. So,
well, it's cool that it comes with the Torx because a lot of people don't carry the Torx. Like I've even switched out, my clutch and brake reservoir caps to Phillips just because I don't carry that little T15 or whatever it is, and I want to be able to. So yeah, having the Torx is kind of a slick idea.
Yeah, it's and with the KTM, all of the 8mm heads have a T25 Torx in the center of it. Is that what it is?
I think it's a T30.
T30, yeah, it's a little bit bigger. I'm not sure. That's the funny thing with the Torx is it's so hard to see the sizes, but it's amazing how a T20, 25, and 30 will all fit the T25, or somehow you can make it work. Sometimes the big
Yeah,
one's
it'll
harder to
work,
get in
yeah.
there, but I've had a too big of a Torx, and I've made a smaller Torx head screw fit in there.
Yeah.
I'm answering a chat question, Brenda. Kids goggles. Kids goggles. That's extra small helmet and extra small head. Just like everything, there's kids stuff that fit the smaller people out there. So you have a new 2024 KTM 300 XCW.
Correct.
We saw you on the show a couple weeks ago working on that. You just got the bike. You were doing your initial kind of prep and setup. Kind of tell us what you did when you got a brand new bike. And how many years have you been doing motorcycles?
Yeah, I'm over 20 now. I forget now, 22 or 24 or something like that.
Okay.
Long time.
Worked at a dealership.
Yeah, for about 10 or 12 years.
Yep. So you have some experience all the way there. Now you work at an independent motorcycle repair shop.
Yep.
So you know all these things. And what did you do to set up your new bike?
Yeah. Well, I did order it from a shop out of state, so I got it in a crate, which was easy. Just simple. Put the front wheel on, put the handlebars on, and it was more or less ready to start. But I took it apart quite a bit. I greased the steer head. I greased the swing arm bearings. On a linkage bike, we would grease all the linkage as well.
How much?
Matt and I have.
How much did it need it?
It a lot. Matt and I joke that that's one of the places they save weight is by not putting much grease in there because grease is heavy.
Right.
But we actually have given it more thought because we are kind of deep thinkers on all things motorcycles. And Matt and I have come to the conclusion, even though we've never talked to anybody from KTM or any of the manufacturers about it, we think it's because it has something to do with the assembly line. They don't want, too much grease in these areas, going down the assembly line. If they're globbing the grease on, we would prefer more along the lines of heavy grease instead of light grease. But, they come, I've taken swing arm pivot bolts out before, and literally they are bone dry, absolute raw metal, nothing on my fingers. So, obviously that's going to rust if any humidity even gets in there, let alone some water. So, go through, grease it good, and, kind of give all that a look over and a lube up. But, check all the nuts and bolts. There's a lot of things, obviously all those accessories I put on, all the guards, all get put on carefully and everything's paid close attention to. Re-oil the air filter. But other than that, I didn't do, too terribly much, and I was stoked. I never had to open my tool bag out on the trail for the first week that I rode it.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So technically you could have ridden with no tools.
Yes.
Oh, and we didn't talk about this before you came on. This is news to me.
And I've been slimming down how many tools I carry because I as a mechanic, I know how many things can break.
No extra. You didn't. You're on a KTM. You didn't carry an extra cylinder and a new ceramic piston.
Nope, I did not.
And
but,
absolutely not.
I do carry quite a bit.
I'm not saying this because Yamaha sponsors this show. Yamaha, makers of the awesome YZ250X, that could be just as good as whatever Tim was riding, except it has a carburetor and a Kickstarter. Those are two things that your bike does not have.
Correct.
Okay,
and it doesn't have a counterbalancer either.
There's
mine does.
Why would you want that extra weight spinning around uselessly inside of your motor to create a bike that doesn't handle as light and efficient?
Right. Well, and that other gear in the transmission, it doesn't have either.
Which one are you talking about? The sixth one?
That one that makes it a full half dozen.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Skimped, and they only give you 5 of them.
So okay, I'm just gonna ask a question here. So during your ride, this ride, awesome ride you went on in Colorado and Idaho, how many times were you in fifth gear, wide open, and then you needed to shift to sixth to go faster?
The place I was not that kind of place.
No, I'm just don't make excuses.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to propping you up on the Yamaha here. So you're wide open in fifth gear on your KTM 300. You know, I mean, it's Yamaha's only 250, so it's by me not going as fast, but wide open in fifth gear, pin, and you had to shift into sixth to go faster.
No, it never happened.
Never
I was
happened.
breaking it in though.
Oh, how many hours did it? As a professional motorcycle mechanic?
Yeah, I only logged like 17 hours or 18
That's
hours.
it? Yeah.
I had my 500 also, so
Okay.
I didn't ride the 300 the whole time.
Got it. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. I mean, it's hey. So, how good is that bike?
It is phenomenal. I mean, I need a thesaurus just to come up with more wonderful adjectives to describe it, because it's an amazing bike. I really am pleased in every way, starting with, I guess, since we're talking about it, the transmission. The transmission's magic. First gear is granny low. I would find myself lugging through gnarly rocks in second, but like for a deep river crossing or something, I'd always make sure to downshift to first to make sure I got enough, power to get me through it, not lugging it too much because I didn't want to stall it. Although I don't know that I stalled it ever. So yeah, the tranny was awesome. And then fifth and sixth gear.
Have they changed that from 2023?
I don't know. I haven't spent a ton of time on the newer generation, 17s, 18s, with the counterbalancer, and then obviously the newer TPI, 6 speeds, and so I'm not sure how the trannies on those compare. I know the TPIs lug down to super low also.
Right. So that's this is the question is like I don't think I have a problem. I have a 19300 TPI, and I don't think I have any issues with that transmission. I think it's really, really good. Maybe first gear might be just a tad tall for my liking, because I like to do stupid stuff that requires probably a lower ratio first gear than most people would like, but I don't really notice a first to second gap. I would actually not mind a first to second gear gap if I got a little lower first on my 300, but I will tell you that going from a carbureted one to a TPI, the throttle response and we'll just for lack of a better word call it jetting. I don't think that it would, if you're at a steady throttle position, wherever it is in that first 5% of throttle, I don't think it's any, quote, better if you're holding it steady. But if you change it, I guarantee you that the TPI adapts to the change better. In other words, it doesn't bog or kind of miss a stroke or two and then hit.
Right.
So I don't know if that, it would be interesting. I'd have to see a spec chart to see the gears.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, what's interesting is the new bike comes geared with a 1345 sprockets.
Wow.
Which I just thought was interesting. And one of the things I was thinking of they might be doing that for is just you get a slightly shorter chain and slightly smaller sprockets, all weigh a tiny bit less. So I don't know if it's a weight thing.
I will tell you that if KTM can save some weight, they're going to do it. I've watched just even some of the brake parts that they've changed and some of the, it's like I've in my opinion, sometimes they've sacrificed some different things in engine mounts for weight as opposed to, I don't want to say better handling. It's just the characteristic went away from what I wanted, but they changed materials or shapes. And I'm like, wow, you did that. And I could feel this. And sure enough, I could switch it back to an older part that it may have been, quote, less durable, but of a lighter material. And I like the handling characteristics better. But yeah, crazy. So 13, somebody has to pull out the calculator. Somebody in the chat do this. 1345 compared to 1449, I think was what used to be standard. Right. I'm a 1450, by the way, on my bike. I go between 1450 and 1452 because the axle blocks in the KTM, which is actually really bitching. The axle blocks, you switch it around and you can go 2 teeth smaller on the rear. Very simple.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. So actually, okay. Like the motor, like the transmission, I'm blaming the TBI now that you have that everybody, but also that new power valve, the electronic power valve,
right,
is so much more responsive and how it, how it's programmed as opposed to
Hmm.
just being an old mechanical device.
Yeah, I mean, the power felt smooth, and again, I was riding just gnarly, rocky, single track stuff, so it wasn't, out here, out in California, riding my normal desert trails where, I'm using more mid and high RPM stuff. So the thing lugs super, super low and just, really, really tractable. And it never loaded up. There was a little bit of, spooge coming down the tailpipe, but it never felt like I needed to rev it out. There was some times that I got pretty tired and I was just lugging it in second gear through gnarly rocks for many, many minutes on end. And with my old carbureted bike, that would have been a problem. Even though I had the jetting pretty good, it still would load up over, 10 minutes of lugging. It would be a problem where, I would, get on the throttle after 10 minutes of lugging and it never skipped a beat. It never burbled. It never stumbled. It felt clean throughout as if, I had been varying the throttle, throughout. So I was totally pleased with the fueling.
There's one thing I really noticed, and I went from carbureted to TPI with oil injection, and the Beta did this as well. So we're talking mostly about the oil injection here. Is that if you're lugging, let's say you're on a 7-mile trail section, gnarly trail, just low, first and second gear stuff, and you hop out on a road, and the first time you get on it, remember the old bike would always and then clean out?
Right. Got to clear out. Right.
Yeah.
It's got to clean out.
Did your bike have to clear out?
No.
This
never. I
this,
never felt that once.
Yeah, this is oil injection. It's not TPI or fuel injection. It's oil injection because it knows, it's programmed to know the RPM you're going at. So at low RPMs, it does less oil. So maybe it's down to 101, where when you come out in the road, the higher RPMs are just, even if you're on the trail at higher RPMs, it's going to be like sending in more like 60 to 1. It's like variable mixture, which is ideally what you would want to do. And this is something that I think a lot of people, they get confused, but that's one of the best things about that. And when people say, I'm gonna disconnect my oil injection, I'm like, I haven't really seen too many issues, durability, mechanic, especially for regular usage. Maybe in racing you might have a different take, but it depends on how you're racing. That this stuff actually, they've tested this. It actually kind of works. And if you're in the chat right now and you have a question about a 2024 KTM 300 2-stroke or any of the new bikes that we might have experience riding, go ahead and throw it up there in the questions, and we'll definitely get Tim to ride it because he's spent some time in these. I have not. I've ridden last year's XCs a little bit, but then I kind of know how they work, so I have to be careful. Well, I don't have to be careful what I say. I'll just tell you I don't know. But if you have any questions about these bikes, and Todd, who was it here? TW says every new bike is always the best because you just kicked out $12,000 for it. Did you spend $12,000, Tim?
I got a good deal.
Got a good deal. And you said you bought it out of state because 2-strokes are illegal in California, from what we hear.
California is getting none of the money, none of my tax money if I can avoid it.
Right on.
So I'll buy it out of state, I'll register it out of state, and I'll ride it wherever I please.
Yeah, good on you. So yeah, I can't. I'm really still confused about how the 2-stroke emissions of dirt bikes are causing the big air quality problems in California. But Steven Stanton says he's always pinned looking for a 7th gear. On a KTM 350 4-stroke, see, because somebody just released some charts on KTM 4-stroke transmissions. This is why I was asking if it was changed, because they were complimenting what KTM did to the new 4-stroke transmissions, and I looked at it and from what I remember, it was a lot more like a 350 transmission, which is more, we'll call it semi-close, as opposed to the wider racer transmissions of old. And I get it. I mean, some people like close transmissions as opposed to wide. I prefer wide. I can rev it a little longer before I shift when I learn a bike, but I prefer the range. I like a low first. I like a kind of, we'll call it overdrive 6th. And I don't think the 300 has that. I wouldn't call 6, quote, an overdrive. Did you notice that or feel that?
Honestly, I felt like it was amazing. It really got on the highway, and I would kind of rip it through the gears, and I would think I was in 6, and I'd click up and there was another one. So I could cruise at a nice low RPM on the highway at 55, and I would be still very comfortable at 60.
Yeah.
Which, on a two-stroke, you don't want to be humming a two-stroke on the highway for long periods of time. And I could easily do 55, 60, as long as I need to, whenever. So
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty good.
That sounds similar to my like I would say I can do 65, and it's revving a little too much, going 65 on my two-stroke, but it's not too much to where I'm concerned about it. It's just kind of like we'll call it annoying RPM. It's not that it can't do it.
It's just not a comfortable RPM to be at. So yeah, I was pleased. So I can cover the miles when I need to, and I'll be curious to see what it does in the desert when I really want to, rip and feel it pull hard in fifth and sixth, to do those desert speeds.
I think you're gonna really like it. I raced mine earlier in the year at a sprint enduro, and they had some high speed valleys and stuff. And like you, I was in fifth and found sixth. And it was, and I don't think I had the 52. I think I was running the 50 on that at that time, because I know I switched wheels back and forth, and I had different wheels because I was also, the day before, I rode a 500, and I might have had a 52 on that one for some reason. But anyways, yeah, it went faster than I wanted to go, and I think we're old enough to know when too fast is too fast. I mean, not Vegas to Reno fast, but just going crawling across the desert. Hey, so overall, anything else that you want to tell us about that motorcycle?
Yeah, I was going to, especially because Cole was just on from Flex Bars. I did put Flex Bars on this one, which I have them on my e-bike, but I didn't have them on my dirt bikes yet. I went ahead and set this bike up with Flex Bars right out of the gate, because the rocks, get harder as we get older. And, that's all I'm looking for is plushness. I just don't want to feel the sharpness of the rocks because, like you always say, after a couple of days, it really starts to kind of wear on you. So I did that. I went ahead and I went with the soft elastomers, and I was joking about it today that that's really not good for suspension testing because I thought the suspension was awesome. I didn't feel any, need to soften it up. When I've talked to guys that are testing these new bikes, and they were telling me, oh yeah, soften up the fork, 4 to 6 clicks, do this and do that. And it's like, I didn't touch the fork clickers until like day 3 or 4 because the Flex Bars were doing so much. So I was actually thinking, I should put stock bars on to really do suspension testing. But just listening to you and Cole talk, I think just putting the hard elastomers in, just to kind of dial in the suspension a little bit, and not have the handlebars, doing so much.
Override a stiff fork
would be a good way.
Yeah, and
right.
I that's the first thing I said about Flex Bars is they make bad forks feel good. It was before I realized how much of a benefit they do. And this conversation was not a paid endorsement. We didn't talk about this beforehand. Another thing. Hey, and they may not be for you, but more than likely they're for you, whether you want to admit it or not.
Well, because I was looking at my forks, and the new forks come with those red rings on the chrome tubes, so you can kind of see.
They show how far the fork has gone down in the stroke.
Right. Well, on day 2, like the end of day 2, they were still like 4 or 5 inches from the bottom. It's like clearly the fork is a little on the stiff side. I could afford to soften it up some, but
did you check your oil level?
Yeah, I forget what it set at, but Matt took my fork all apart, mapped out the valving, and then resprung it for my weight.
Right. So he kept the standard valving in there.
Correct. He just mapped it out. He wanted to see what was in there. We've talked about changing the pressure spring like they do in the 6500 fork. It comes with a 20-pound pressure spring, and we can go either 16 or like the 6500 kit comes with a 12-pound spring. Those are all things we're going to test, but I was joking that I'm going to have to put the hard elastomers in my fork just to, really be feeling the fork instead of, feeling the handlebar flex.
Yeah, it does make a difference. And it's funny because if you get your fork dialed in and then you put the bars on, you'll find yourself going to a stiffer setting on the fork. This is always what I've done because I feel like I get a little bit better control if my fork isn't absorbing the bumps. And the same thing with tires. Like I found that I can take a pound or two out of the tire pressure and do some similar stuff to, as far as feel, but then the handling goes away because it wobbles. And so you're always trying to find this, different things. So Zach Humphreys has a question: did the frame change affect the handling on the 24 KTM XCF like it has on the SX bikes, or are they different frames?
As far as I know, the frames have that similar new design. That the fuel pump and everything is all kind of different because of that new frame design. But as far as the exact difference between SX and XC, I'm not.
Well,
I'm not
yours
sure.
is different because it's XCW, so your shock
Correct.
mounting
Mine's
is
PDS.
Yeah, PDS. So
Correct.
it's a little bit different, but yeah, I think they try to make it so that all the stuff that bolts on XCF, SX, XCW kind of bolts on in a very similar fashion. Besides the airbox boot and the shock, because there's a little bit of differences there, but I think their KTM is going for a slightly different handling feel. And I don't care what you hear about like the pro racers saying and stuff. They are not riding stock bikes, and the problems they have are not problems that you would ordinarily experience. So, generally the direction they start going with these production bikes is a way that their development and test riders, and these manufacturers use a wide range of riders. They feel that that's a better direction to go. And yeah, of course they make mistakes over time, but I don't think that when I rode the new chassis on the KTM's, I said this is kind of a better direction. It was a little, we'll call it a little more predictable and comfortable than the previous generations, which may not lead itself to being as precise for a high level guy. And I think a lot of manufacturers have gone down this road. It's a double-edged sword when you start going that direction that feels better for regular people. It makes the bike more difficult to tune for people with particular needs, and we'll call those racers, which is, are you really racing? And I mean, and we're not talking about racing at the highest level. You need it. Like we're trying to build a Formula One car that everybody can buy and ride. And most people, actually, it's proven. Like they've had quote high level journalists go try to drive a Formula One car, and they won't even drive it fast enough to make the features of the car, in other words, the ground effects, the aerodynamics, work because they're petrified. Well, if you tried, and I've ridden factory race bikes from all the manufacturers over lots of different time periods, and they're some of the worst bikes I've ever ridden. Are they good for their intended purpose? Probably, but I wasn't that good to do it. Are they good for the rider? That's not for me to say, but the fact that I was usually riding that bike because it won a championship or the manufacturer was trying to show off a bike that was doing really well, it was great for that rider, but not for me. So that's the truth there. So I don't think that's a problem, Zach. And Mike Kmet says TTT needs a tequila sponsor. I think so. You want to disagree with me, Tim?
Yeah, I'm not going to need any tequila sponsors, but I'll let you have all of that.
No, I'll have one for you. But anyways, tonight's tequila is Sincuro. I'm trying to think who I should throw this one out to here. Mark Daniels. Because he has TTT. He has an extra T in his TTs. But anyways, we'll have that a little bit later. I have a lot of questions tonight. Will you be willing to stick on and help me answer some of these questions?
Sure.
Okay. So you may not, because you can't see this because you're doing it on the phone. I'm wearing a very nice hat that I was provided by my good friends at Inside Line Moto. Inside Line Moto.
Yeah, I saw that. Looking good.
A local Orange County shop that does independent shop that knows their stuff. I know because I used to go to these guys when I was working at the magazine, and would swing down there usually to get really sage advice on what was going on in the real world, because we lived in this vapor sphere world where everything that was given to us was perfect. But I wanted to know what the real world was doing, so I would go talk to these guys. I remember them from working at old Z Racing back in the days, and both Tim and Matt just seem like really good guys. So if you need your bike worked on down there, I mean, we're a worldwide podcast. We have millions of viewers from all over the globe. But if you're in the Orange County area and you show up and you say, I didn't know anything about this, I need a good shop, I'm kind of in the Orange County area, Inside Line Moto, I decided to come here because I heard about it on a Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, they might be extra nice to you. Do you think?
We might, if yeah, we're overflowing with work already,
Uh-oh.
so we'll try not to sound impatient and irritated, but just it's just tough. We're busy right now. It's crazy.
That's good. I hate to break the news. We had another sponsor drop out because they're doing too good. So the advertising on this show is actually helping companies to do too good. So if you are a beer or tequila company and you want to do too good, let me know, and I can probably work you into the program. Steven Stanton says flex bars preferred versus Mako.
Yes.
It's
funny, and
I say yes, and I'll talk to this. Go ahead, you first.
Well, it's funny because my buddy that I was riding with while I was breaking in my new bike, he has an 18 Husky, and he has the Mako 360. He had just put them on, and he likes them. It's a good product. There's nothing wrong with them, but in my opinion, you just get a lot more from the flex bars. There's vibration dampening and stuff happening with the Mako 360, and that's cool, but the flex bars do more, and that's where, when you really hit that square edge, curb like rock, I think that the flex bars just, flat out are doing more. So I don't think the Mako 360 is a bad product, but if I'm spending my money, which is, my money to spend is, I'm definitely putting it on flex bars, not the other. Although it'd be interesting to see what the two together would do. Since all I want the plushness.
I've done a lot of back to back, and I actually helped in the very early days of Mako with the flex bars. They had sent, because they knew I was a proponent of this, and they were literally struggling to get people to give them honest feedback on their bar. If they gave it to somebody and said they'd sponsor them, they got really good feedback, and they'd give it to other riders, and they were struggling. And he went through some of the very similar things in the early phases, especially like elastomer development movement. But I did a lot of stuff, helped him a little bit with his elastomers, and then he kind of went his own way. And at that time I was kind of going, yeah, this thing has some merit. But for me, the problem with the Mako is exactly what kind of Cole talks about, is that steering plane. It absorbs everything, all different directions. Not to say it's good or bad, it's a different feeling. And for me, that when you got a certain directional hit, that the Mako, because the bars moved together, and I think you might have maxed out the elastomer, I felt that the impact that I didn't want, where the flex bar would still continue to avoid, where the Mako, I've got a little bit of a vague front end feel. And so, like I said, some people don't really know, but it's sort of a this or that. I would go with flex all day long, just like you did. But to be honest with you, there's for certain types of things definitely worked really well. I do oftentimes run a flex. I think if you're trying to get rid of vibration, by the way, the Mako might actually be better. I don't think the flex bar does a whole lot, quote, for vibration, even though they'll tell you that it does. I think that the vibration, especially certain rev ranges, can transmit through. But on some of my bikes, I run like the BRP bar mount because it comes with a Scott stamper, and I have a flex bar on top of it. That's my standard setup. And whether it's a 2-stroke or 4-stroke, I run a different elastomer because of where the vibrations are. And the BRP mount, and not on the flex bar, on the BRP mount, the BRP mount does the vibration dampening, where the flex bar handles the fork, the fork chassis feel. So as a way to talk about it. So anyways, yeah, thanks for the question there. We can answer 9 out of 10 without referring to a reference manual. And thanks, Tim, for backing me up on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're.
Well, I was going to say, in a perfect world, I would have liked to break my bike in for a day, like more close to stock. Because again, I went right to flex bars and just went and rode gnarly rocks instead of, riding it stock and then putting them on to really feel the effect. I did ride it without a stabilizer, and I got the new precision stabilizer in now. I haven't put it on yet, but I definitely miss not having a stabilizer. Even in like the Erzberg type gnarly rocks, I actually noticed the lack of a stabilizer, and I look forward to seeing what it'll do with it. But I don't know. That's where it's like, I did make quite a few changes right up front, so I didn't, I don't have stock to compare it to.
Yeah. Okay. And that leads me on to my next question for you, which we're going to do after we do some questions, is about customer bikes coming in brand new and modifying brand new bikes before you ride them. But I would just say on top of that, I have never ridden a bike that did not benefit from a good steering stabilizer ever. It's like I can put them on there and I don't know it's there, but when I need it, it works. And just to say this, I run a Scott steering stabilizer, steering damper. I've run the Scotts. I helped develop them early days, a long time ago. Helped make one of the pivotal decisions that made the Scotts the Scotts. But I just bought one. If you want to know, I can generally figure out a way to get one, and they're few and far. They're hard to get. I've been around for a long time. I just bought one because I needed to get one for a bike that didn't have one. So, anyways, there's onto that. So we're going to start running down through some of the questions. So the question, we're talking about some of the questions we have. On the WR450 video we did, it says, so does this bike have the new chassis? And this is Whiteout Snowy asks, no, but the new for 24 WR450, which I'm going to show a picture of on the screen right now. Now, look at that, Jim. That gets the new chassis. So amazingly, the WR450 next year is going to be all new. It's going to be just like the 23YZ. So there's kind of surprise news from Yamaha. It was released late, the info, but the new WR450F is just like the FX. And it's, again, not for sale in California, because you communists that live in California cannot have a bike without a VAP canister on the charcoal canister on the gas tank.
Yamaha's not even going to let us buy it as a race bike?
Nope. You cannot buy them in California. They just legally, they can't do it. But it is going to come completely corked up, just like the old one. It looks, when I look at the picture, it still has the steel sprocket. It comes with a kickstand. It's going to have the throttle stop, but it literally has the button on it now to change maps, but it changes traction control, not actually maps. So, but I'm sure you will be able to buy a new GYTR competition ECU for it as well. So just so you know, Yamaha released the WR450F for 24. It's all new, and so that's the thing. Whitey Snowy also says better to go with the YZ450FX. It's less restrictive, better flowing pipe, more horsepower, etc. All those statements are correct in some ways, but maybe some people would like to have the lights, which it's a different ignition, more power coming out of the ECU, a slightly different suspension setting that may suit your riding. So, hey, that's why Yamaha makes a WR and an FX, so you can try both of them. And now they're both the latest, greatest as far as the YZ spec goes. But my issue is I have a 23 sitting in the garage WR that I'm making into the best ultimate bike ever, which if you want to come out and do a shootout, Tim, we'll ride that. We'll go back to back, your bike, my bike, and we'll see which one's better.
Yeah.
And of course, since I'm a journalist and I'm skewed, I would only say that the Yamaha is best because they are a sponsor of the show. You know this, right?
Of course, I know how it works.
No. Anyhow. And then Wander Bergen 6209 is asking about our YZ250FX. Would riding handlebar position be similar to that of other Yamahas like the TTR? You know the answer to this. TTR versus YZFX?
Yeah, there's no comparison. What is he talking about?
Yeah, he's definitely a newer rider that's kind of just curious. He might have a do you get regular, ordinary people that haven't ridden dirt bikes for 20 years ever come to the shop?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually had a Yamaha 125 come in there just actually this morning.
TTR
and he brought
or
it
YZ?
in. It was a T. I know. I totally thought it was a YZ 125, and he showed up with a TTR. I was like, "Oh, we're talking about a kid's bike."
No, but he was a 5'10" man, and he brought this bike in, and it was his.
No, it was his
first
kid or somebody.
And the pilot jet was plugged.
No, actually, it might have been. I didn't even run the bike. All I did was threw a front tube in it. But
Okay. For sure. So, yeah, there's there is that. Good job. That's an easy call, easy service.
yep.
Okay. On a CRF 250L, I know these are out of your wheelhouses because these are just, these are we try to help out everybody on this show. We don't care if you've been riding forever. This has become kind of irrelevant because there is a 300 out now. I want to say absolutely not. Because do you know how many used CRF 250Ls there will over the course of the next 20 years be on the used bike market? A
I'd
lot.
imagine quite a few.
Because a guy that buys a CRF 250L 3 years ago, if they like riding, what do you think they're going to be looking at next?
Something better.
A Yamaha, of course, right? A Blue Crew?
Something less Chinese.
Less Chinese. A Cove 450, maybe?
Well, those are performance Chinese, not.
We got a lot of Cove questions, by the way. You should ride one. It's.
I would throw a leg over it.
You know what? For you specifically, you should buy one, and I'm not kidding because I know what kind of riding you do.
Yeah.
Man, the Cove might be your bike because Tim just takes off. He usually takes his KTM 950, which is definitely a well set up, well used, ridden hard, put away wet, and re-ridden again and again. KTM 950. But how many times are you out on your KTM 950 riding around, and you think, I kind of want to go there, but you know that you're on a KTM 950?
Well, and that's the problem. Being on a 950 by myself really limits where I can go. When I'm on a solo ride, I'm very limited as to what I'll try because it's 600 pounds. And if it doesn't go well, I'm by myself, and that can be a problem. Where on a smaller, adventure type bike, or even my 500, I, have more liberty to try stuff because, I can get myself out.
Right. And in reality, when I was riding my Tenere, and Matt was riding the Cove 450, and we got into something super gnarly, I got off my Tenere, hopped in the Cove, and went and checked it out.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this is going to be way safer. And we were in, I want to say we were in shit. We weren't to deep shit yet, but I'm smart enough not to ride my adventure bike into deep shit. So I took this, which is also an adventure bike, and it did everything my Tenere did on the entire ride. And I decided to take that to go realize, okay, if I go any farther, then I'm going to be in deep shit and we have to turn around. So I went down there, looked at it, turned around, came back, said, okay, we're going back the way we came. That speaks volumes to what that bike is capable of and what it is. But yeah, Cove. So yeah, Cove might be for you. I should when I told him when he's sold out. They're sold. Those things are selling. People are talking about them. It's all good. When I get a chance, I would like to get an actual total production one because ours have been ridden a lot, and just do what I normally do with the bike test and go out and ride it and make sure that it's all what it's all cracked up to be. And we said this about this. Ours was an early production. I don't know if it's completely standard or not, but I think it was, or at least close to it, and pretty good. So the KTM Freeride, that's the electric bike. Bring it to the mountain single track. It's not a desert bike. Says Sir Marsh 3756. So Sir Marsh, I rode it in the mountains. I just don't have a video. I don't just I'm not like an Instagrammer that videos myself everything I do. Like everything but taking pisses on the side of the trail. I don't do that and just repost it. So I rode it everywhere. And
I'm known as the pisser.
And they're on. Do you forget to turn your GoPro off while you're taking a leak?
Well, no, because I drink a lot of coffee in the morning before a ride, and I've ridden with some of the influencers.
Oh, and
every time we stop, well, no, every time we stop, they're photoing. Oh, they're taking photos, and it's like I'm turning around just away from everybody, taking a whiz.
Hey, have you ever done that thing where you can while you're kind of riding because you're on a ride, you don't want to hold it back, so you kind of unbutton and get everything kind of unzipped while you're riding, so you can just literally step off the side of the bike and just let it go?
No, I usually take my time when it comes to doing that.
Oh, this is the racer in me. I used to race motorcycles.
Yeah, racer, yeah.
Yeah, I have a little history in this. I could, the first stage I ever won in Dakar, you know what my time included? You know,
Fist stop.
oh yeah, one of those and a full-on dump ski.
Nice.
I did it. I did a number 2 on included in my stage time, which I won by 8 minutes. I don't like to talk about
Nice.
beating Stefan Peterhansel by 8 minutes in the Dakar Rally stage, but they said it was the stage that was going to separate the men from the boys. But so I was a man and I stopped and just dropped a number 2. I mean, you have to. What are you going to do? You're riding all day. It was only like 8 or 9 hours of riding. Little day, short day in the Dakar. Not like these pussy stages that the kids do these days. Ricky tells me how hard it is and never like to believe him. Okay, back to the questions. Somebody tells me about the Cove, says the DR650 weighs about the same as that, which is crazy. No, it's Chinese. It's not crazy. This thing's carrying a large amount of fuel, big gas tanks. A DR650, I wouldn't call it a light bike, but I think the motors are made very similarly. In other words, to last a long time. So, bikes 0420. What do you think bikes 0420 spare other bad habit is? I mean, part-time activity.
Yeah, I could take a guess.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Podrick Payne 3167 is asking about the KTM 450 XEW. He says, "Can you get a green sticker for it?" This is a good question.
No.
You cannot on the 450.
Not that I know of, but I have heard that there might be a green sticker version coming out, which is going to be just as choked up as an EXC, and it'll get a green sticker. But I have not heard anything that confirms that.
Yeah, it has to be, and the reason is because, like I talked about, like the reason the Yamaha can't be sold in California is in California you need to have an evaporative emissions setup that includes a charcoal canister on the fuel tank venting, and they have this on the EXC, of course, but on the XCWs, I don't know if they integrated it. It goes up in the frame. It slides. You know where this slides up? It slides up in the frame down tube, and it's
Right.
inside there on the EXCs. It doesn't affect the performance whatsoever, but it does include some bulk and some extra hoses and a little piece onto the wiring harness to connect the thing that turns on and off when you start the bike, so it sucks the fumes out of the charcoal canister. So I don't know if it's green sticker, but it needs to have all that stuff, and that's why the Yamaha basically said, screw it, we're not going to do that. So back to this before we get heavy into the Cove questions. Mr. Lewis, he says, "I have been enjoying your blog on the Tenere 700. I say, well, thank you. He has a 2023, and I was wondering if you knew anyone who can program the ECU to smooth out throttle response off Vital. I am in Southern California, and I believe it is caused by our crazy emissions. Any help would be much appreciated. Keep up the good work. Steve." So Steve C. So I don't think that the emissions on the Yamaha Tenere are any different in California versus all the other states. I happen to have a California registered Tenere 700. Of course, it's my wife's bike, even though I ride it most of the time. And I don't think that the throttle response is off of idle is because of emissions. It could be a little bit, actually, because basically if you do a quick snap of the throttle, like you snap it, that's a very dirty moment for a motorcycle. And so they can't have that because it would fail the test. So I don't think that's a California thing. I think it's an everything thing. This is why I think it's a little bit different. But I haven't found an ECU programming, but I just got a throttle tube. So a different G2 throttle tube that I'm trying to see if it helps it. I do have a different programmed ECU. It hasn't fixed this. I'm talking to them. I'm going to talk to them about fixing this, but I just need more time to test it, since I have to do my blog on food critiquing, and then I have to do my cat petting videos that I do, and I haven't started up my OnlyFans account yet, so I'm busy doing some other things, but I'll get to your thing for that. So, am I right, Tim?
Sounds like it, but I haven't ridden the Tenere, so I'm not sure. But
Oh,
you know,
you sell your KTM in 20 seconds. You should ride my Tenere. It's pretty good right now.
sounds like I need to make a road trip out there when that road opens, and we could spend a weekend testing all kinds of stuff.
We could do this, and then you have to stay around for Tuesday. You could be in studio, and you could just slap me up silly and talk while I have the rest of my Syncuro.
Yeah.
Okay, next question here. Thanks for all your videos and sage advice. How do you avoid covering the surface of the rim that is in contact with the tire with mousse sauce? Don't you want to avoid that to prevent the front tire with no rim lock from rotating? Says Todd. Tim?
Front tire should always have a rim lock.
Well,
If you're running mooses, you got to have rim lock.
it's funny, in our rally racing days, we never ran a rim lock on the fronts. And it was I think for the same reason that this person was recommended from a very knowledgeable person to not put a rim lock in his front. I think both wheels they might have told him not to put a rim lock in it, because they're basically doing a tour from Baja, point to point, and they're not planning on changing tires or wheels, and they want them all to be running mooses, and they're very specific about what mousse to do. They talk about how to lube it, and so this guy knows both the tour guide and myself, and he reached out to me and started asking some questions, and I said, follow the guy who's doing the tour's advice, because the tour guide and I don't want to say disagree on brands. We've have different luck with different brands of stuff. And I said, hey, although I disagree with the brand, everything he told you is okay. Do you ever notice how when you're running your mousse with rim lock or without, it's always going to seep out of the sides? Especially when you
leaks and makes a huge mess.
Yeah, it leaks. Oh, I hate that shit. It's kind of like you rode through a field of bugs, and they got the pretty fork sticker that you have on your motorcycle gets all and you can't see your sponsors or whatever. But yeah, so it's going to leak out no matter what. So even if there's a little bit extra on there, how do you avoid it getting all over the tire? Well, number one, I only lube inside the tire. I do not lube the mousse before I put it in. I lube the inside of the tire, and I put the amount that you would put on both the mousse and the tube, which is generally one whole tube of lube if you have tubes, on the front, and 1.5 in the rear. That's sort of my amount that I usually use. It all goes in the tire. It's very well spread out in the tire, and then I stuff the mousse in there, and there's usually a little bit extra, and sometimes, depending on the mousse, I will rub that on the mousse that's sticking out of the tire, or I will actually put it around the band of the rim so that there's mousse. And once you ride it, it's all going to spread out. I mean, when you see it trying to squirt out of the sidewall, there's plenty in there.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Right. It's doing its job. You hit some bumps, you get some rotation, the tire sits, it's drooling all over the place. That is a messy bunch of junk. So if you're running no rim lock, if you can get on the brakes hard enough to make that tire slip substantially during that one braking moment, I'm not going to tell you that if you mark the tire and mark the rim, you're going to see that tire migrate over the course of time. But if you can get on the brakes hard enough to get it to move and you can feel it on your brakes, it feels like your brake isn't working that well or something, either A, you're really good on the brakes, or B, you put
your mousse is undersized.
Yeah, your mousse is undersized. Yeah, you put way too much lube and your mousse is undersized. It's not pushing out there on top. So this isn't something I would really worry about too much. But what that will help with, and I think the reason they suggest no rim lock on the front is for wheel balance, number one. And generally the mousses tend to fail. Well, mousses tend to fail because they're under lube, number one, and improper installation, number two, which generally means the person that put the tire on broke the bead of the tire, or not even just the bead, but even maybe 1 or 2 wires of a 6-wire bead, and that breaking caused the tire to do something funny, and then the tire hops like it would if it was way out of balance, and it puts a lot of pressure on the mousse in a certain spot, and it wears the mousse out in that spot, and then it causes failure way down the road, in my experience. So with that stuff, I'd be careful, but don't. Yeah, do what your tour guide says. That way when it goes wrong, as long as you didn't do something stupid, at least they can't blame me for telling you something different. I run a rim lock on all of my Moose wheels. I get 1,000 miles, if not 1,500 miles on a Moose, and I don't have problems because I install them correctly with the right amount of lube on good tires in a properly sized Moose. Does that all make sense?
Yep, it sure does. I run the Moose balls, and I've had good success so far, and I do balance them. I even balance them on my two-stroke, just to offset that the rim lock imbalance that is naturally there, and it makes it quite a bit smoother. And you're going to feel that anytime you're going third gear or more. It's going to make the bike feel smoother.
Right. And the out of balance, it bothers some people more than others. And it's funny when the wheels kind of get in a sync and they're both out of balance. Do you love that?
Yeah.
What happened to my bike? Mark Daniel says, Jimmy, on your flex bars, what color dampers are you running? For me, it's generally red dampers. Mark, for you?
I got the blue on the up and the green or the yellow for the compression.
So that's slightly stiffer.
So softest.
Oh,
no, I'm softest. The softest they come with is what I got.
Is blue, red is medium, and I thought yellow was stiffer than red.
I thought it was just the softest, but
yeah, or is it blue that's different? I have it written down. It's kind of funny because I'm thinking of Recluse clutch springs right now. There's blue, red, silver, and steel, and all this other. So I get confused. I have to I have a chart that I have where it's written. Actually, one's on my wall and one's on my box of elastomers where it says what they are. But I'm running reds kind of all around on my motorcycles currently. Sandor Sam Stitches says, what would happen if KTM engine mounts were over-tightened or under-tightened?
I'm not sure what bike he's talking about, but that probably has something to do with the aluminum top motor brackets on the newer 500s that are known to crack.
Yep.
Although I think I've seen one in all the 500s I've worked on doing a valve adjustment or doing whatever on it. I said, oh, he's got a cracked motor bracket. I think I've seen one. I know Taco Moto sells some super high dollar, brackets with a titanium bolt. Personally, I don't think they're necessary, but the guys that are, their wallets are overflowing with some dough, go for it. They're bitching. I mean, they are nice parts, but so what's making them crack? I would think, motor mounts not being tight enough, letting the motor shift a little bit, bottoming your suspension too hard because you're running on stock springs and you're 230 pounds plus gear and you're hammering G-outs in the desert and you think, oh, I don't know, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. One, it's dangerous, and two, it's actually hard on the frame and it's hard on other components.
Correct. Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, over tightening sometimes tends to stiffen the chassis up, and under tightening can make it loose or make the chassis flex to a point where it gets really stiff all of a sudden. And so it's best to keep it in the stock range, and then 5 pounds in either direction might give you some things. And Brenda and both Mark, red is stiffest, blue is softest. And with yellow being in the middle. So there we go.
I must be blue on compression and yellow on rebound.
Wow.
Because those are the softest you can do, because they don't come with the same color for the rebound. Like the rebound's going to be one step stiffer no matter what.
Usually, yes. Yeah, and
So.
I think it depends on the bikes. I kind of run reds a lot of times, which is stiffer. But I think that's the thing where I went softer and then I kind of went back stiffer just because, I was able to get my suspension exactly where I wanted to, and it still does a job. But I know I have one that's blue and yellow, and I want to say it's one of my Husabergs. And it's not just because they look like the Husaberg colors. Okay, everybody, so quit giving me shit. I could care less what it looks like. I just run it. Okay, here. The 9000 says, an idea for the show, a ride area mini view, i.e., and he starts listing off a lot of the places where I've ridden, even if you have personally not been there. And the reason I'm not saying these areas is because, well, one of the 3 that he says are actually really, really good. Spend 10 minutes talking about a destination for riding. I'm going to save this question for next segment because I'm going to go on a little bit of a a rant about this and talk about. I just don't like to give away riding areas because, yes, I know from experience, and you really need to earn your wings when it comes to knowing the riding areas. I don't post on the internets like where I'm riding. Generally, when I ride a really good area and a friend brought me there, I would never talk about it. But I also volunteer to go work on their trail system to help them out. If a track is really bitching or an event, it's a public event and all this stuff. Yeah, I might mention it. But interesting. Okay, do you agree with that in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, oh, I don't like this social media stuff, just plastering it all out there, making it too easy for the average numbskull to go get, access to the best stuff. It's like you work your way up to the best stuff
They become
by
consumers. They have no invested
right.
interest in it. They go ride it, and then they want to be cool. So their coolness is, I'm going to tell all my friends the bitchin' place I just rode,
Yeah.
and then everybody else does the same thing, and they have no investment. They just wrecked because
Right.
trails can only take a certain amount of usage. And I'm not being an elitist to say, but go find them on your own. Quit giving away the goods. I know you just want to tell one friend, but you tell the one wrong friend. And I've told the one wrong friend a couple times, and I want to find that guy back out on the trails, and
Yeah.
I want to bury him underneath the trails, what I really would like to do. But I want to make them go fix all the bullshit that's effed up, whether it's some water bars that they roosted out that caused a big giant rut, whether they need to be limbed or trimmed, or you come out, you spend a day working on trails. And this is something, and this is where I'll go like next time we talk about it. You're going to get this from me every time. You go spend a day working on trails. You go spend a day, you build a trail, which you can't do anymore, by the way. It's not the old days. You can't do this anymore. You work on a trail. You take the time to do it, and then watch one guy tell one friend who invites 15 friends who invite 100 more friends, and now your trail has giant hoop-de-doos in it. It's got a big rain rut in it, and everybody goes, oh, that trail sucks now, and you remember what it used to be like, and it's like,
Yep.
well, guess what? You told one friend that wouldn't come back and work on it, and that guy's like, dude, I'm over that area now, bro. I go ride here because he's sucking off another interfluencer tit that's just
Yeah.
quit
Well,
posting
there's
locations.
actually a popular shop that I'm sure you've heard of. I won't say their name now, but they're famous for that. And they've ruined, well, not ruined, but they've definitely overexposed 3 different riding areas that I know of. One time, a buddy of mine were riding in some deep bitchin' single track, and we came across 18 of them. And fortunately, we came across them at an intersection where we had already stopped. And 18 of these racer dudes come around the corner, and it's like, okay, I guess, this ain't a secret anymore, which is understandable, whatever. But then they all park off the trail. And when it came time for them to all go, we called it the bomb run. Like somebody dropped the banner and all of them took off and just ripped the shreds at this mountainous area that we were in. It's like, come on, really? Like, we should know better than that, especially that it was an industry, shop that is, taking all these guys out on a ride day and not, teaching trail etiquette at a minimum. It's
Right.
like, come on, guys, stay on the trail. There's no reason for you to park 8 or 9 wide, like literally all in the forest. And then when the one leader dude put his helmet on and took off, they all acted like the banner dropped. It's like, guys, that's not the way we, need to be preserving these, pristine trail areas. So
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I agree, and I've seen that. I've seen that kind of stuff before, and same thing. It's consumerism as opposed to being part of the team for all this
Yep.
stuff. And I've spent way too much time fighting for land use access and being on the right side of the equation to watch it all go to hell because someone wants to be popular on social media or use it as a selling tool. If they're using it as a selling tool, if you do that, you're not going to have anything to sell pretty soon. It's just not going to go that way. I mean, the UTV market is exploiting this in a way that's just unbelievable right now. And I watch some UTV forums posting ride trips through wilderness areas, wilderness with a capital W, showing their
Oh,
ride
wow.
reports and going through there. And I'm like, I can't believe you just admitted to federal thing. You just did this, and they're eventually they're gonna crack down on this, and just come on, let's be smarter about this. So yeah, it's people tell us you can still make trails in Montana. Well, don't worry, because too many people from California are moving up there because they read on the internets that you could make trails in Montana. And you just posted on my thing. I just read it out loud, and I'm not going to tell anybody. Flying Brian 529. Careful. But you're talking about Montana right outside of Jawbone Canyon, California, right? That's the or is it was it Ocotillo Wells, California, that Montana, because that's where everybody goes to ride. I have a couple other questions about the Cove. Let's kind of hit these. Paul Coverdale 8312 says, it was the Chinese Dakar bike that done so well. They decided to put it out on the open market. Here in the UK, they are gaining a real following. Number one, they are good. Number two, the fuel. It is 8 gallons for you guys in the States. Well, no, it's not actually 8 gallons. We measured it. We talk about this in the video. 31 liters for us in the UK. You're just reading the specs. Looks like it's going to be a giant killer from the views before the 2024 shows up here in UK and Europe. Enjoy. Well, I don't know if it's going to be a giant killer, but I think they're going to sell plenty of them in that company, as long as the production bikes follow suit with the bike that we rode. They're going to be in good shape. Can you compare the vibrations on the Cove versus the T7 at highway speeds? An old guy here, sensitive to the buzzins. And that's David Walker 5795. I didn't ride it a ton on the highway, but the bit that I did, and I'm probably not the vibration guy that you want to talk to, it definitely vibrated a little bit more being a single cylinder, but it really, for a 450, and I think it has a big counterbalancer in the motor. I'm almost positive it is, because it's kind of a motor that they use in a lot of different chassis, street bikes included, all over the world. So it doesn't really vibrate that much, especially for a single cylinder. It's, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. So somebody's asking about the Yamaha WR450 because they're watching all our videos. Would you take this over the Cove for a one size fits most? Everything from commuting to desert to longer adventure rides, dirt, and single track. Even a night desert race, maybe. So this is man, I can't even, Zufid243X, whatever, a YouTube name. How do you answer that question, Tim?
I've got a simple answer. There's no such thing.
Yeah, you're asking about a unicorn.
Well, and it's like I have 3 motorcycles for a reason. I got a big one, I got a dual sport, and I got a small 2-stroke, and that's because it's, you're not going to do like, and I've said, if for some reason I, hit hard times and I could only have one bike, I would only have a 500 EXC. But I wouldn't be riding it to work and riding hard enduro gnarly stuff and trying to adventure ride. Guess what? I'm not going to be adventure riding, and I'm definitely not going to ride it to work, but I could ride all my desert stuff, technical stuff, high speed stuff, kind of a mix of everything, Colorado in the summer, and the 500 is the most versatile, but it's not a do everything.
But
bike. There's no such thing.
You could adventure ride if you want. You could maybe put a one bigger countershaft sprocket on it, and you could adventure ride and ride it to work.
Yes.
You could put a
if
one
I needed
smaller
to,
countershaft on it, and you could go ride some gnarly trails.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there are bikes that can span the range, but you're not going to have fun at either end of the spectrum. And there's no such thing as a unicorn. Cove to WR450, it's really simple. The more I'm leaning toward adventure riding, the more I'm leaning toward Cove. The more I'm leaning toward during enduro and competition or anything that has to do with the word race in it, I'm Yamaha 100% of the time. It's really that simple. At Selfish says, fair to judge after riding it. He's talking about the Cove. But the descriptive of a perception of being junk is not an unfair bias, but biased on experience. All Chinese bikes have been comparative junk. Chinese making better better bikes helps us all forging the competition to up their game. That sounds like a fair assessment.
Yeah, well, but there is a difference. Like I know what people talk about when they're talking about Chinese bikes. Like
Do you still
the
have
K or the.
Do you still have the shop around the corner that sells? It like used to be a lawnmower shop, but now they sell mini bikes. Just
I
down
don't
the street a little
know of
ways,
anyone.
closer to the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know of them.
Yeah.
If they might have gone away, I don't know.
I brought my
But like
mini
when
Aprilia
guys,
there.
yeah, when guys talk about the CRF 230L or 250L and 300L, it's like
Those are Brazil.
we get what's that?
Brazil, built in Brazil.
Well, they're Chinese bikes in my book. No adjusters on the suspension, things like that. I mean, steel handlebars. They're just heavy, gutless, choked up. Entry level bikes. And I've had a number of guys call us with those bikes thinking, oh, I want to get my suspension dialed in. It's like, we just start doing the research on them and realize, whoa, okay, no, those are Chinese bikes. Okay, maybe they're not made in China, but they're just super entry level bikes. And, they're going to be heavy and they're going to be sluggish. And for guys that have been doing this a long time, that won't cut it. But, for entry level stuff, I think it's great because, our sport is shrinking.
Let me be devil's advocate here. Okay. So you said heavy. The funny thing about it is a novice rider on a heavy bike, they say it's more stable and they feel more comfortable on this. We did some extensive testing and that's the way it came out.
Yeah.
Again, Chinese, it's all built someplace else. It's not built, quote, in Japan. Well, you'd be amazed at how many parts from the Japan bikes are built, we'll call it overseas in different places. And so, like, I think globally, the production quality is going up to a level where it's going to be difficult to find out. And the fact that companies ship parts from different places to a certain place to be assembled and put made in, whatever, and who knows, maybe some of this COVID is made in Japan. I don't know. Probably not. But I think we got a question coming up here that we may get to because this show's running a little bit overboard, but it's staying interesting, at least in my brain. I'm sorry. I'd like to apologize for everybody. But everybody's going to have to up their game. That's just the way it is. And if these things start providing better experiences, we're going to have to forget the past. Look at original Japanese motorcycles. People looked at them compared to the European stuff at the time and said they're junk. And if you really want to get kicked in the nuts, and I am as patriotic and as American as everybody else, why the hell can't we produce an American-made bitchin' motorcycle that's world dominating? If you are sitting here spouting all this stuff out, work on that. I would be the first guy. I would love. I loved it when Canada got in the game. I was excited and stoked for them to come into the game and do something American made and produce this stuff. And there's a reason why all these manufacturers know that they come over here, do all their product testing. They need to get good reviews in America before the bike sells worldwide. There's a reason why America is what it is. But when it comes to actually getting it produced and manufacturing processes and labor and a lot of other things, it goes offshore. And this isn't just motorcycles. It's all different kinds of things. I'm surprised Mexico is not producing a really good American-made bike. Sorry, Gary Jones and Amex. You guys are way ahead of your time. But that's the way things are. Someone else says, Tyler at Everride sent me. Thank you, Tyler at Everride. Great review, and he's subscribed. And we're going to be over 20,000 subscribers pretty soon. That's pretty cool. Not that matters because I used to have 200,000 people reading some stupid magazine I used to work at, but that didn't work either. At Tom Askwell 184 says, damn, it's like sitting down and having a chat with a legend. Thanks, guys. Is he referring to Matt?
Is that me
video?
or is that you?
No, I think he's talking about Matt in our Cove video. Yeah, Matt's legendary. Matt, so imagine that you could be sitting right here in this chair next to me right now. And you gave it all up because you're not passionate about that. If you want to be a co-host on Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, just get passionate, come right over here. You can sit in the Bulletproof Designs chair. It's sponsored by Bulletproof Designs. Tim, I know you know a lot about motorcycles. What products did you put on your bike before you left to go gnarly trail riding in Idaho and Colorado? Not that those are good places to ride. I know you wanted to go to Jawbone Canyon, but what products did you put on your bike?
Bulletproof designs, flex bars,
Unrehearsed.
moose balls. That was about it.
Hey,
Spark arrestor, springs.
Bulletproof Designs makes all of the products you need for your brand new bike that you just bought that you want to put on there and protect it, and you don't need to test them because you know they're the best. And that's coming from somebody who has Bulletproof Designs on his bike that he put them on after he bought the bike used from another guy because he wanted to make it protected and all good. And thank God the radiators were not bent one bit before I tried to put them on, because do not buy Bulletproof Designs radiators if your radiators are bent. Start with your bike new, and you'll never have to replace them. Otherwise, if they're bent, none of the radiator guards are going to fit on there, at least very well. So do yourself a favor. They cost half of what a new radiator costs, and then you'll never have to buy one. BulletproofDesigns.com.
Well, after a week of riding in Idaho, all the gnarly rocky stuff, my swing arm guard, my rear disc guard, there was my foot pegs all got, battle wounds. My pipe, surprisingly, not a single nick in my pipe. I'm surprised that I was able to, not hit my pipe, but I don't have a guard on it. But my front disc guard, Jimmy, it's brand new. I could put it back in the package. I did not hit it on anything.
Whoa.
But, I could have, but and I would have been well protected, but I didn't.
You should just get rid of that extra part of that disc guard and just get the little fork lug protector. Because I kid you not, my fork lug protectors on my KTM 300 have done their job. George at ESP Suspension, who's my go-to guy, working for him for over 20 years, actually 35 years. Jesus. He likes it when I have those on there because he can get the lug bolts out of the bottom without having to.
No, I know those are good, but
the disc rotor. Disc rotor's easy to bend back if you make a mistake. Let's see. I think. I'm gonna stop with this one. So we did it. Trevor did a really nice video of how to use Windex to clean your grips, your white grips. Because everybody runs white grips these days. I guess I don't know. And DZNF7 said, groundbreaking content here. Taco Mike and Jay from Dirt Bike TV have some competition. So Dirt Bike TV Jay is afraid to come on this show and tell me the worst motorcycle ever. So that's a challenge to him. I want to know the worst motorcycle ever, Jay. He's always busy when I ask him about the worst stuff. The best stuff all day long. The worst is a little bit difficult. I'm going to can a lot of these other comments and stuff so we can get them to the next show. I'm sorry if we didn't make it, but I'm wearing out. I've been pushing buttons over here at Tech Talk Taco Tuesday for at least an hour, 2.5 hours. And Tim from Inside Line Moto, who needs a T-shirt or 2 or 4, I don't know what I promised you. I spent a lot of time working on my T-shirt order form today, and my form software is broken and it won't accept payments, and I'm making up excuses like there's nobody's business, but I'm gonna get on it. And Mark Daniels can tell you I'm a man of my word, and I will get you your T-shirt when it's time. The T-shirt
eventually.
These Tech Talk Taco Tuesday T-shirts that are available in gray in a multitude of sizes. We meaning me, the janitor, the accountant, the guy who's in charge of sponsorships, the guy who turned the lights on, and the guy who fed his cat, who somehow got up on the roof and it's meowing like crazy right now. We're gonna handle your T-shirt. So thank you for coming on the show. You got a pretty good discount running for all of our Tech Talk Taco Tuesday listeners over there at Inside Line Moto.
We'll see about that.
We'll see about that.
You got to pay for quality.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna take a little cut off the incredible profit margin that we all make in the motorcycle industry because it's a passion.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I really appreciate the support. I appreciate all the listeners checking in, all the people that are online. If you want to comment more on the show, just leave it in the comments on one of the platforms. We see those. We put them in the next show. We're running a backlog of comments. That's why we're not doing Rooster Endo, which means the jackpot. You might want to submit your new bike. With a nice photo. Your jackpot is doubling. I'll talk to Taco Mike about that. And hey, everybody, we'll see you out in the trail. So cheers. End. I have to push the end button now. Hold on. There's another screen here.